Chapter 1600. It was a pity that as a man, he did not have the nerve to argue with his two junior sisters. Yuaxian turned the ring, and everyone saw a light screen appear in front of them. The red light screen was very dazzling, and the people standing in the front row could not help but close their eyes. When they opened them again, they saw a closed transparent shield in front of the table. Yuaxian stood in front of the transparent shield and looked at Arbor proudly. She laughed coldly and said, "How is it? Do you still want to go in?" Arbor ignored her and turned to look at Qi Xianxian. He nodded at her to tell her not to worry, then he turned around and entered the transparent shield. The moment he walked in, he felt that the scene in front of him was somewhat familiar. With a rumble, a bolt of lightning fell from the sky. Arbor felt that the plane in front of him was very, very familiar. Wait, wasn't this the thunderous plane from before? She did not expect that this simulated environment could replay the scenes that she had experienced before and simulate the entire thunderous plane. This was really amazing. Arbor ran wildly on the thunderous plane, and his sharp eyes dodged the bolts of lightning that fell from the sky. Outside the transparent shield, everyone could see a slender figure moving back and forth continuously. Her speed was extremely fast. Although she was covered by a transparent shield and her movement space was very small, her movement speed was not something that everyone could see clearly. She had basically turned into an afterimage, moving up and down inside the shield. Fast. So fast that it was almost impossible to see her figure. So fast. Senior brother Su Liang could not help but exclaim. Yuaxian and He Wei were also stunned. The two of them looked uneasy, their faces alternating between green and white. He Wei moved to Yuaxian's side and asked softly, "Senior sister Yuaxian, did you activate the highest level of the simulated environment?" Yuaxian said angrily, "Do you think I'm stupid? I can't even differentiate between the high and low levels. This is already the highest level of the simulated environment." However, Arbor's ease really made people unhappy. After such a long time, not a single bolt of lightning hit Arbor. At this time, lightning and thunder crisscrossed within the shield, and Arbor was running wildly between lightning and thunder. Her entire body was like a bolt of lightning. Most likely, those below the level of Great Spirit Master would not be able to see through her movements. Only those with strong spiritual sense could see it clearly. Xiao Mu halted her footsteps and looked up at the thunderous plane. She could not stay here any longer. She had to find a way out. Arbor didn't know how long he had been in there, but he was getting impatient. Roar! A furious roar came from the thunderous plains. Xiao Mu reflexively dodged, and then she focused her eyes again. Damn it, it was a mammoth, about 10 times her height. This was probably just a mammoth formed by spiritual energy in a simulated environment. Therefore, although it looked huge, it might not be very powerful. With a light tap of her foot, Xiaomu had already dashed towards the mammoth. Midway, a miniature wooden club appeared in his small hand. In the blink of an eye, the wooden club became twice the size of a household club. Everyone's eyeballs almost fell out of their sockets as they watched from outside. Arbor carried the wooden club on her shoulder and landed on the mammoth's trunk with a whoosh. Without another word, she smashed the club down on the mammoth's trunk. Senior brother Su Liang was slightly shocked. Chapter 1601. The little girl's move looked extremely vicious. Senior brother Su Liang could not help but be stunned. The little girl's methods were not easy to deal with. Junior sisters Yuaxian and He Wei were making things difficult for her. Could there be any good outcome? On the other side, the mammoth's nose was hit hard by the club. As if it had a real body, it let out a miserable howl. The little girl stepped on its head and flipped in the air. With an instant flash, she had already moved to the side. She held the club tightly with both hands and stepped on the air. She was slightly suspended in midair, and her eyes emitted waves of cold light. Suddenly, it swooped down and launched another attack like a mammoth. The huge vibration spread in everyone's ears as if it was substantial. But in fact, the battle between Arbor and the mammoth, which was sealed by the shield, would not fall into anyone's ears at all. However, for some reason, everyone seemed to have heard that earth-shattering sound with their own ears. But they felt that the sharp screeches were still echoing in their ears. The air around them instantly quieted down. Everyone watched dumbfounded as the mammoth scattered like ashes and turned into a cloud of spirit fog, slowly disappearing in front of Arbor. This visual conflict was very huge. One move, it was just one move. Arbor finished off the entire mammoth. Her feet landed on the ground, and she slowly walked forward. Yuxian's words just now echoed in her ears. Yuxian meant that as long as she finished off the 5 giant beasts, she could leave this place. Since that was the case, she would go find the beasts and finish them off one by one. Boom! 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 Heavy footsteps, accompanied by the sound of a big hammer dragging on the ground, came towards Arbor. Arbor looked carefully. It turned out that a warrior in huge armor had formed in this spirit fog. This warrior was about 2 meters tall and held a big hammer in his right hand. His hammer was very huge. When he walked just now, it was this hammer that made the sound of dragging on the ground. At this time, the soldier's eyes were focused on Arbor, and there was a ruthless light in his eyes. Arbor looked at him coldly, looking at the black armor on his shoulders. That should be a custom-made armor. Although it was only formed from spiritual energy, its defense should be enough to withstand all attacks from mystic cultivators level 15 and below. The club, Jin, in Xiao Mu's hand grew longer again. She stomped on the ground fiercely and shot towards the soldiers like an arrow. In the face of a battle, she never thought of running away. Fight! Fight to the end. This was her usual style of doing things. Everyone inside the shield was stunned. Senior brother Su Liang silently glanced at the dean's daughter. Junior sister Yuxian was really too reckless. She actually activated the highest state of the simulated environment, and even a rank 5 spirit master would appear. And the little girl in front of him. Although the little girl in front of him did not have the slightest bit of profound energy fluctuation, senior brother Su Liang would no longer view her as an ordinary little girl without any cultivation. Reality proved that this little girl's cultivation was extremely high. She probably used some kind of magic treasure to conceal her aura. She was a girl who kept a low profile. Arbor swung the huge club in his hand and smashed it at the soldier's head. Chapter 1602. The soldier swung his heavy iron hammer to block. With a loud clang, the club and iron hammer collided, producing a heavy sound of friction. Arbor's figure didn't move at all, but that soldier's body swayed. This caused Yuxian and He Wei, who were outside the barrier, to be stunned. How was this possible? The soldier in front of them was already a level 15 mystic cultivator, but he still wasn't Arbor's match. What exactly was so strange about this girl, Arbor? Why didn't she have any mystic energy fluctuations? Arbor naturally didn't know what the two girls were thinking. She was currently engaged in a hearty battle with the soldier. She moved and dodged as if she was teasing a kitten or a puppy, toying with the soldier. After several dozen moves, Arbor felt that she had fought enough. It was time to make this soldier formed from spirit energy disappear. The club in her hand emitted a golden light, and mystic energy converged into a straight line that pounced at the soldier's head. The sharp blade drawn from mystic energy shot straight into the soldier's mind, instantly disintegrating him. The armor on the soldier's body also completely melted, turning into wisps of spirit energy that blended into the surrounding environment. After finishing off the second soldier formed from spirit energy, Arbor started to gain experience and knew how to find opponents to fight next. As long as she completed 5 battles, she would be transported out, so she had to end the battle quickly. The people outside the shield watched with numb expressions. When the little girl was fighting with the Iron Hammer soldier earlier, her attitude was slightly more serious. But now that she was fighting with a level 1 spirit beast, the little girl was no longer serious at all. She finished off a spirit beast in 2 moves. Then, she went to find a 4th spirit beast. This time, the 4th spirit beast had already reached level 3, but it still couldn't last 3 moves in Arbor's hands before turning into spirit energy and dissipating in the simulated environment. Everyone was no longer shocked. Instead, they looked numbly at the little girl inside the barrier as she wandered around and continued to choose her 5th opponent. This time, another person appeared in front of him. Moreover, it was an opponent who could control the water spirit. The other party's water spirit had already begun to take shape. Xiao Mu looked at the strand of water spirit energy shuttling back and forth between his fingers and creased her brows. She raised her small hand, and 5 streams of water weaved between her fingers like spirit snakes. Arbor coldly looked at the water spiritualist, a trace of seriousness appearing in his eyes. Senior brother Su Liang and the others all noticed that the little girl seemed to only reveal a trace of seriousness when she was fighting with others. A long sword materialized in the other party's water spiritual teacher's hand, and he pounced at Xiao Mu without any explanation. Arbor sneered. With a flip of her right hand, a black ferrule fell into her palm. The golden club in his hand was withdrawn, and a line of fire shot out from the ferrule, directly into the hands of the opposing water spiritualist. After a light, chi sound, a trace of fire on the ferrule was extinguished by the opponent's water spirit energy. Arbor blinked and looked at the water spirit sword in the opponent's hand. With a swipe of her small hand, a water spirit sword appeared. The ferrule in his left hand and the sword in his right hand pierced through the water spiritualist's opponent. A faint light burst out from the water spiritualist's body. He originally wanted to quickly retreat and dodge, but he didn't expect the little girl to be someone who didn't play by the rules. Chapter 1603. Look at her left and right hands, they're both weapons, right? Actually, they're just a cover. If you think she'll use her left and right hands to attack you, then you'll be tricked right in front of you. Arbor summoned a startled swan dagger from his conscious at the last moment. The two were telepathic, and the startled swan dagger shot toward the water spirit master with a whoosh at lightning speed, instantly slicing open that person's throat. Thus, the water spirit master formed by spiritual energy turned into a faint wisp of smoke and dissipated in front of Arbor. A light flashed, and the little stoic came out of the barrier with a cold expression, standing expressionlessly in front of everyone. Yu Axian and He Wei looked at each other in dismay. No matter how unwilling they were, they had to admit that this little stoic directly passed the second test and became a student of Sunlight Academy. Congratulations, little miss. Su Liang appeared very happy, and he stood up and nodded at Arbor. You're now a member of our Sunlight Academy. As soon as he finished speaking, a strong light exploded from the little miss's body, connecting heaven and earth, drawing in spiritual energy from all directions. That scrambling speed made it seem like the spiritual energy had 5 senses, as if they were afraid that they wouldn't be able to find her if they were half a beat slower. What? Yu Axian and He Wei stood there dumbfounded as they watched the scene before them. This is advancement. Miss Qiao advanced, Miss Qiao really advanced. This time, she truly advanced through battle with the assistance of the Xuanji core. A leveled 15 entry-level mystic cultivator could communicate with heaven and earth and draw in spiritual energy into the body. This little fellow was already a quasi-spiritual cultivator. On the side, Qi Xuanxuan's jaw had already dropped to the ground from shock. She reached out a small hand and hastily propped up her chin. Qi Xianxian blinked and suddenly jumped to Arbor's side. She hooked her arm and exclaimed crisply, "Heavens, Jojo, you actually advanced after fighting a few battles." As expected, Shantian Prefecture is rich in energy and can help with advancement. Yes. Arbor's mind was no longer here, but he was shocked by the sudden opening of the inner world in front of him. When she glanced over, she found that her inner world, which was originally 180 cubic meters, had increased by quite a bit. Now, it was probably 500 cubic meters. Some of the mist-shrouded areas in his inner world were revealed, revealing even more. Gold, silver, and jewelry. Oh my God! Did she rob the palace's treasury in her dreams? Arbor's eyes were fixed on the boxes of gold bars. He closed his eyes and opened them again. There were rows of 3-story tall stone statues in the inner world. Looking at them now, there were definitely more than 800 pairs. There should be at least 3,000 statues. Could it be that there was actually gold hidden inside these stone statues? Arbor couldn't help but suspect that he might be a legendary treasure thief. Perhaps she had buried all kinds of gold, silver, and jewels in the stone statues. Otherwise, why would she place so many stone statues that could only be looked at but not eaten in her inner world? Don't you think it takes up a lot of space? Although the inner world was already 500 cubic meters, more than half of the space was almost filled by these stone statues. The outline of the snake statue behind the stone statue was gradually becoming clearer. It looked like it was roaring at the sky, and there were 2 small bulges on its head. Although it looked like a snake, the more he looked at it, the weirder it felt. Chapter 1604. Jojo. Qi Xianxian saw that she was in a daze and couldn't help but tug at her gently. Arbor withdrew her spiritual awareness from her inner world and watched as the door to her inner world closed. Only then did she regain her senses. She turned to look at Qi Xianxian and nodded slightly. "I'm fine." However, with her current situation, she still needed a relatively quiet environment to advance. It wasn't suitable for her to stay here any longer. Seeing that Arbor was about to turn and leave, Su Liang hurriedly ran forward and cupped his hands towards Arbor. "Junior sister, you have passed our Sunlight Academy's assessment. Please come over here to register." Arbor glanced coldly at the person who spoke and shook her head. "I'm sorry, I'm in a hurry to go back and prepare for my advancement. I don't have time to register." Senior brother Su hurriedly stopped her and smiled. "Oh, it's fine, it's fine. Junior sister, you only need to leave your name with me. We'll help you get an academy card. It won't take long, just a few minutes." Arbor glanced at him indifferently and her lips curled into a mocking smile. "Perhaps I didn't make myself clear enough. I won't join your academy." With that, she started to walk away. On the side, Qi Xianxian also harumphed coldly and followed after Qiao Mu without another word. "Wait!" Senior brother Su Liang was startled, and even his voice became louder. "Young friend, please wait." A slightly old voice came from outside the crowd. In the blink of an eye, an elderly man with white hair and a white beard rushed over at lightning speed. He carefully examined Qiao Mu before nodding slightly and saying, "This young friend, you were a student from our academy just now and didn't know your limits. Sorry for offending you, Master." Su Liang hurriedly stood up and bowed towards the old man. Su Liang saw that the situation wasn't good and guessed that he wouldn't be able to keep Arbor. He hurriedly sent a message to his master so that the old man could rush over. "Elder Su." All the disciples bowed towards the old man. This Elder Su was the honorary dean of Sunlight Academy and was an outstanding pill refiner. Thus, even Lord Dean himself had a very respectful attitude toward that old man. As Dean Yu's daughter, Yu Axayan was well aware of this. She didn't dare to offend the old man. Seeing Elder Su appear, Yu Axayan and He Wei knew that the situation was not good. Sure enough, Elder Su turned his head and glared at Yu Axayan and He Wei. Then, he turned to Arbor and smiled kindly. Little girl, as long as you join our Sunlight Academy, this old man can make the decision to waive your tuition for 3 years. Also, this old man can vouch for you and recommend you to participate in the 6 Prefectures Academy's Powerhouse Ranking Competition in November this year. Wow! Everyone was listening attentively. After hearing the elder's promise, they all exclaimed. Elder Su actually vouched for a new student, promising to send her to the 6 Prefectures School Tournament in November this year. One had to know that the 6 Prefectures Academy Tournament was held once every 3 years. It was a tournament between all the academies in the 6 Prefectures continent. Everyone in the 6 Prefectures was watching this grand occasion. It also involved the allocation of resources on Brinset Island for the next 3 years. Brinset Island was a place that the 6 prefectures would fight over. The island was as big as half of Shantian Prefecture. There were rich mineral and medicinal resources on the island. Chapter 1605. It was even one of the rare spirit lands in the 6 prefectures continent. There were a total of 3 spirit lands that had been excavated on Brinset Island. They were currently owned by the schools that ranked first in the Academy League 3 years ago. They were Sunlight Academy of Shantian Prefecture, Auspicious Academy of Ani Prefecture, and Heaven Bestowing Academy of Poland Prefecture. One could imagine how important the Triennial Academy League was to the entire 6 prefectures continent, and how important it was to every student. And now, Elder Su was actually sponsoring a new student to participate in it. Why did Elder Su trust this new girl so much? This showed that he was very confident in the girl's strength. Yu Axayan's lips moved. Elder. Shut up. Elder Su glanced coldly at Yu Axayan again. This Yu Axayan, relying on the fact that she was the daughter of Sunlight Academy's headmaster Yu, was getting more and more unreliable. She actually didn't want to accept such a talent into Sunlight Academy, but kept pushing her away. The selfishness involved in this went without saying. Everyone present couldn't help but look at each other. Although they believed in Elder Su's eyes, it was obvious that the girl was really young. Although her cultivation was about to break through to the spirit realm, there were plenty of spirit realm experts in the Academy League. The little girl had the advantage of her age. Among this group of people with mediocre aptitudes, she naturally appeared to be talented and intelligent. Her talent was even more prominent. But the 6 Prefectures Academy League in November was a competition between spirit realm experts. The average age of the participants was around 20 years old, and the participants were all seniors of at least 5 years. The girl might not be able to stand out among these seniors with great talent and rich battle experience. Moreover, others wouldn't show mercy to you just because you were young, okay? This involved the interests of the various schools, so naturally they would fight with their lives on the line. The 2 girls who had just arrived at Shantian Prefecture had never heard of the Academy League. The 2 newbies looked at each other, and then turned to look at Elder Su. Sorry, I've already decided. Arbor said indifferently. Elder Su couldn't help but feel anxious. Little girl, you might not know what it means to participate in the Academy League. Every student who participates in the Academy League will have the right to cultivate in a spirit realm on Brinset Island for 15 days. If you can get into the top 100 in the league ranking competition, you will be rewarded handsomely. Of course, the higher your ranking, the more valuable the reward. You can consider it. Just the right to cultivate in Spirit Realm for 15 days was enough to drive everyone crazy. Even if you were only a substitute for the school tournament, when you set foot on Brinset Island, it meant that you had obtained the right to cultivate in the spirit domain for 15 days. This was really tempting. Many people looked at Arbor enviously. It was said that the experience of cultivating in spirit realm was completely different from normal cultivation. For those who had just entered spirit realm, after 10 days of cultivation, their cultivation would increase by a small step. Normally, this small step would take at least half a year for a cultivator of the spirit realm to complete. Little girl, what are you hesitating for? Quickly agree to Elder Sue's request. Several disciples from the Sunlight Academy hurriedly said. To be able to obtain the qualifications to participate in the tournament as soon as he entered the academy, where else could he find such a wonderful thing? Chapter 1606. Moreover, Elder Sue had promised to waive her 3 years of tuition fees. If it were anyone else present, they would have agreed to it 800 years ago. However, Arbor was unwilling. Her disdainful gaze shifted between Yuaxian and Hiwei as she said bluntly, "Your academy's environment is too bad. I don't want to meet retards the moment I leave the academy." Qi Xianxian suppressed her laughter and nodded seriously. That's right. We don't want to be chased and bitten by a mad dog every day. Who are you calling a mad dog? Yuaxian's expression instantly darkened. Her eyes were filled with anger, and her expression looked like she wanted to eat Qi Xianxian. Qi Xianxian made a face at her and giggled. Whoever responds will be the one. Yuaxian was unable to restrain her anger. Shut up. Elder Su glared at Yuaxian, who suddenly jumped out to interrupt them, and his eyes were filled with displeasure. Yuaxian, I will truthfully report your actions today to Dean Yu. Yuaxian couldn't help but panic when she heard that. She hurriedly said, Elder Su, let me explain. Elder Su snorted coldly. No need. No need to explain. This old man knows exactly what you're thinking. However, Arbor wasn't in the mood to continue watching the Sunlight Academy's elder and Yuaxian quarrel. She turned and left with Qi Xianxian. When Elder Su saw this, his intestines turned green with regret. He regretted coming too late and not stopping Yuaxian from making things difficult for Arbor at the first moment. However, it was too late for regrets now. Elder Su sighed. The academy missed out on such a young prodigy today. It's hard to say whether it will be good or bad if we meet again in the future. If such a young prodigy goes to the other 5 prefectures' academies, then it's hard to say whether our Shuntian Prefecture's Sunlight Academy can successfully obtain first place in this November's school league. Yuaxian glanced at Elder Su in amusement. Elder, aren't you overestimating this little girl? Although she is very powerful, but she is also very strong. Although she is very powerful, she might not be a match for the other 5 prefectures. After all, she is merely a mystic cultivator who hasn't even reached rank 15. And in the school league, rank 5 and rank 6 spirit masters are practically everywhere. Short-sighted. Elder Su angrily rebuked and coldly swept a glance at Yuaxian. How can a person's actual combat ability be judged purely by their cultivation? It's not like you didn't see how the little girl performed in the highest level of simulation just now. She's a level 15 mystic cultivator who hasn't even reached level 15 yet. Do you think it'll be very difficult for her to deal with a level 3 spirit beast? Seeing Elder Su's hair standing on end, it seemed like he was truly enraged. Yuaxian couldn't help but shudder. She was really surprised. Elder Su and Arbor had only met for the first time. Why did he have so much confidence in her? Just because the girl's performance in the simulated environment was somewhat unexpected. However, this shouldn't be a big deal. After all, in a simulated environment, the opponents formed by spirit energy were all illusory. Compared to a level 3 or level 5 spirit master who fought with a real body, their actual combat strength was completely different. Moreover, She was just a weak girl who had just come up from the lower star field. Could she really change the structure of the 6 prefectures school league? Ha! She didn't believe it. Even if she was beaten to death, she wouldn't believe that such a thing would happen. How could it possibly happen? Looking at Elder Sue's departing figure, Yu Axayan couldn't help but feel a bit of a headache. Chapter 1607. The most important thing now was to think of a good reason and excuse to explain to his father. Elder Sue was a difficult person to communicate with. If he had made up his mind to report to his father, he would definitely do as he said. He walked up from the side and snorted. It's just passing the second test. What's so great about that? When we entered the academy, didn't we all pass the second test too? Elder Sue, I think you're overestimating her cultivation base. Yu Axayan glanced at her indifferently. She thought about how this woman had whispered into her ear and added fuel to the fire. That was why she couldn't hold back her anger. She felt that she was being used by this woman. Wei said that Arbor's little girl was favored by Senior Sue. Naturally, she was very angry. If it were not for this woman sowing discord, perhaps she simply would not have paid attention to an insignificant character from the lower star domain like Xiao Mu. Naturally, she wouldn't defend Elder Sue. Now that she saw Elder Sue's disgust towards her, Yu Axayan couldn't help but worry. After all, Elder Sue was someone who had a lot of face in front of her father. Furthermore, the pills he made were also very good. Thinking of this, Yu Axayan quickened her steps. She wanted to find her father to discuss how she could redeem Elder Sue's friendliness towards her. On the other hand, Arbor and Qi Xianxian returned to the small inn. They left early in the morning and only came back now. However, to the two of them, it was purely a waste of time. They arrived at the Sunlight Academy for half a day and didn't even register. Instead, they were nagged by a woman. Thinking of this, Qi Xianxian felt uncomfortable all over. Arbor tugged at Qi Xianxian and said, I'll leave for a while. You rest first. Then, he threw her a small bag of spirit coins. Don't worry about saving money for me. Go buy whatever you want to eat. Don't treat yourself too badly. After saying this, she had already disappeared from the room. Qi Xianxian paced around the room curiously, only to discover that Xiao Mu really had disappeared without a trace. Even her aura had completely disappeared from the world. Qi Xianxian wasn't too nervous. Since Arbor had already informed her in advance that he would be leaving for a while, then he should be looking for a relatively secluded and quiet place to cultivate and advance. However, this little Jojo really had a lot of secrets. Could it be that she was carrying a mystic domain-type artifact with her? Qi Xianxian shook her head and didn't probe any further. She took the small spirit pouch that Arbor gave her and happily walked downstairs. As soon as Arbor entered Paradise Planet, he was enveloped by the profound energy that surged from all directions. He didn't have time to think about it. His entire body had already sunk into a meditative state of calmness and concentration. Profound energy floated around her body, enveloping her layer by layer, forming a huge transparent cocoon. The little water baby rolled to her feet and swayed its watery head from side to side. It turned around and asked Little Tree, who was waving its branches as it ran over. Chocho, how long is Master going to be in seclusion? At least 3 days, at most 5 to 7 days. This time, Master had directly advanced from level 14 advanced stage to level 15 elementary stage. She had skipped a small realm in between so naturally, her advancement wouldn't be too fast. Chapter 1608. Qi Xianxian waited in the small inn for a full 4 days. On this day, she was eating breakfast listlessly in her room when she suddenly felt the air fluctuate. She immediately turned around and widened her eyes in excitement. Sure enough, she saw a slender figure appear in the torn air in front of her. Jojo. Qi Xianxian happily skipped over. Just as she was about to reach out to hug her, she suddenly stopped in her tracks. A pair of big round eyes sized her up from head to toe. Qi Xianxian suddenly exclaimed, "Wow! I can feel that the aura you're releasing right now is much stronger than mine. What realm have you advanced to?" Initial success level 15 Mystic Cultivator. Whoa, not only did you cross the threshold of level 15 Great Mystic Cultivator, you even directly skipped the entry realm and entered the initial success realm. Qi Xianxian had a worshipful expression as she carefully sized up Arbor. Jojo, it must have been hard on you these past few days, right? In order to advance, you couldn't eat or sleep well. You must have been hungry for a few days. Come, I just asked someone to send up some hot porridge. Let's eat together. Arbor had a "thank you, but I'm not a foodie" expression on his face. He was speechless as Qi Xianxian pulled him to the small table and pressed him down. The two of them each held up a small porcelain bowl. Qi Xianxian ate 2 mouthfuls and couldn't help but ask, "Jojo, where do you think we should go next? Do you want to continue looking for that senior brother Situ of yours?" Arbor shook his head. "Let's not. Senior brother and the others should have also encountered their own fateful encounters. With their cultivation, there was no need to be too worried. In any case, there would be a chance to meet them in the future." Arbor decided to put aside the matter of looking for Situ Yi and the others and let nature take its course. "That's good. After careful consideration these past few days, I feel that the two of us should still find an academy to stay in. At the very least, we can study systematically. For example, I might be able to advance to the spirit realm after studying in the academy. For example, you can learn how to better control and use spirit energy in advance." Arbor drank a mouthful of porridge and nodded his small head in agreement. Always floating around Shuntian Prefecture like this was not a good idea. As for people, they still had to find an organization. "After thinking about it for 4 days and 4 nights, I've finally come to a decision. I think we should just go to a top academy." Arbor spat out a mouthful of hot porridge. In the blink of an eye, Qi Xianxian held a plate in front of her face and completely blocked Jojo's spit. "Jojo!" Qi Xianxian shouted angrily. "What kind of reaction is that?" Adhering to the principle of never admitting to doing bad things, Arbor slowly wiped her mouth with a handkerchief and said calmly, "It's okay. Go on." "Humph." Qi Xianxian stood up and clasped her hands behind her back. She recounted the benefits of going to a top-notch academy. That day, the tutor from the top-notch academy also said. There were mentors from the 5 spiritual faculties in the academy who specialized in one-on-one tutoring. "Let me think, this treatment should be pretty good." Arbor's mouth twitched. "That's right, it's the tutoring of outstanding instructors like Zhou Danjin." Qi Xianxian blinked and coughed lightly. I've been wandering around the city these past 2 days because I wanted to find a good academy for the two of us to stay in. But I don't know why, ever since I got into trouble with the Sunlight Academy, I've never been able to find a good academy. Whenever I went to the registration area of the other academies and said that I wanted to register, I would be rejected. Chapter 1609. Upon hearing this, Arbor's brows creased slightly. "How many academies' registration points did you go to these past few days?" "At least 7 or 8. Qi Xianxian waved her small hand and puffed out her cheeks as she said angrily, "The teachers at the registration points looked at me like I was the god of plague, and they repeatedly waved their hands to tell me to leave. I didn't even have time to say a word at some of the registration points. They just told me to scram." When she said this, Qi Xianxian pouted like a little toad and stomped her feet in anger. Arbor involuntarily snorted. Of course it's because our portraits have already been distributed to every academy in Shantian Prefecture, clearly stating that they're targeting us and won't let us enter. Unless we leave Shantian Prefecture and go to Ani Prefecture or Luotian Prefecture. Otherwise, we might not be able to find a single academy in Shantian Prefecture that has the guts to take us in. What? Qi Xianxian wasn't stupid and immediately understood after a moment's thought. Those two damn bitches from Sunlight Academy are framing us. It should be pretty close. I just don't get it. It's only our first time meeting those two bitches, so why are they targeting us? It's probably because they don't like me, Arbor said aloofly. And you were merely implicated because of me. Sorry. Qi Xianxian immediately punched her shoulder. What are you apologizing for? Good sisters should endure hardships and enjoy blessings together. Arbor's brows relaxed slightly. Qi Xianxian smacked the table in a very domineering manner, causing the empty bowl on the table to jump out. Then it's decided. We'll go to a top-notch academy. I don't believe that a top-notch academy won't take us in. According to Instructor Zhou's words, the top-notch academy seems to be located in the lava mountain range outside Anka City. Pack your things, we're setting off now. Qi Xianxian was full of fighting spirit as soon as she said it. The little stoic couldn't help but be infected by this exuberant girl. She wordlessly followed behind her and symbolically packed her tattered bag. Yes, it was just an indigo-colored ragged bag with 2 sets of old clothes and a few white buns inside. It was just for show. Qi Xianxian angrily put all the pots and pans in the room into a bag. As she tidied up the bag, she said, "Let me tell you, JoJo is a top academy. Who knows, it might be a good choice." Arbor silently followed behind her. He pulled out a crumpled letter from his chest and glanced at it. Could it be that everything was predestined? Forget it. Since it was Murong Sun who wanted her to go to a top-notch academy, then she would give it a try. Master couldn't harm her. Let's go. Qi Xianxian flung the bag over her shoulder and roared with her fist raised. Arbor followed up weakly, "Xianxian, why did you take the inn-owner's pots and pans? What about taking them all away? You only had them deliver a pot of porridge, but you actually confiscated their pots and pans before you left. Aren't you a bit too stingy?" Qi Xianxian was startled. She turned her head and chuckled mischievously at her. Let's go. Perhaps Xianxian was right. A top-notch academy might really be a good choice. However, Arbor didn't know that she freaking regretted it 3 days later. If she had to use 2 words to describe a top-notch academy's characteristics, then it would definitely be cheating. Chapter 1610. According to the map, the lava mountain range was indeed outside Anka City. However, the 2 idiots with no sense of direction had wandered around the mountain for 2 days and 2 nights, but they still could not find the place. The 2 of them looked at each other in dismay. Could it be that the cheap map you bought was wrong? Arbor looked at Qi Xianxian helplessly and asked. How is it cheap? I spent a spirit coin to buy it. Qi Xianxian mumbled, then turned the map upside down and glanced at it. Wait, this red river can't be the lava mountain range, right? Arbor leaned over to take a look and saw that there was indeed a red river on the opposite side of the mountain. There was also a little red dot behind the river. Yes, it was that little red dot. A little red dot that you would not notice on the map. This could be the real lava mountain range. Therefore, the 2 of them went in the opposite direction and spent 2 days in an unknown mountain range. Heavens! How can there be such a lousy map? What kind of map is this? Qi Xianxian was so angry that she almost tore the map apart. Arbor quickly stopped her and coughed lightly. It's our fault for not looking carefully. It's all right, the day after tomorrow is the 28th of July for the entrance exam. We, should be just in time. My heavens, the people who sell maps in Shantian Prefecture are all idiots. The real lava mountain range is marked so small, and a lousy mountain is outlined in black. The next time I see that profiteer selling maps, I'll beat him to death. Qi Xianxian gritted her teeth as she recalled the appearance of the profiteer. That fellow was wearing a black cloak and a hat. Looking at him now, it was obvious that he was not a good person. Fuck, she actually fell for this kind of person's trick. What a waste of that spirit coin. Arbor was speechless. Hey, the two little sisters in front. Please wait, please wait. A panting sound came from behind the two of them. Little sisters, I want to ask for directions. The little fatty ran over. He was as round as a ball, and his small eyes were curved like crescent moons. Who are you? Qi Xianxian looked like she was ready to beat someone up, and stared at little fatty with vigilance. What a joke. The two of them had wandered around the mountain for 2 days, but they hadn't seen a single living person. Instead, they had seen 2 or 3 corpse puppets that were dead but not yet dead. They had easily dealt with them. Don't hit. Little fatty hurriedly waved his 2 hands in front of himself and shook his head. I'm a good person. My name is Ko Hongwen. Ko Hongwen. Qi Xianxian lowered her hand and looked at him suspiciously. What are you doing here? I am a little lost. I want to ask the 2 ladies how to get to the top academy. You also want to go to the elite academy? Qi Xianxian and Arbor asked in unison. Little fatty was instantly excited. His small eyes blinked as he looked at the 2 of them. He laughed and said, could it be that the 2 ladies are also going to the elite academy? After saying that, he took out a crumpled and yellowed piece of paper from his pocket and spread it out in front of the 2 of them. Look at this map, it's clearly marked with a black and thick line. But no matter where I look, I can't find the elite academy. Isn't it a little strange? The 2 ladies rolled their eyes at the same time. Chapter 1611. Qi Xianxian snatched the map from his hand, crumpled it into a ball, threw it on the ground, and stomped on it. Hey, big sister, why did you throw my map away? Little fatty couldn't help but exclaim. Was the person who sold you the map sneakily wearing a black robe and covering his face? That's right. Little fatty wasn't stupid and immediately understood. Could it be that there's something wrong with this map? Look. Qi Xianxian showed her map to little fatty. It's exactly the same. Little fatty immediately cheered. Ha ha. Qi Xianxian pointed at the river drawn by the red line on the map. Do you see it? Do you see that little red dot behind the river? Little fatty's mouth instantly gaped open. Could it be that this little red dot is Lava Mountain Range? That's right. The 2 girls nodded at the same time and looked at little fatty sympathetically. Little fatty, you've been tricked too. Fuck. Is the person who sold the map deliberately looking for trouble? Little fatty shrieked and couldn't help but turn to look at the mountain path they came from. He instantly deflated. Heavens, there's still such a long way to run back. Can we still make it in time for the student exam? Qi Xianxian waved her hand and released a majestic golden lion. I didn't want to be so ostentatious at first, but time is limited now. Jojo, let's sit on the little lion. Arbor's eyes widened when he saw Qi Xianxian release her mystic beast. He bounced forward and kept stroking the golden lion's head with his small hands. Look, other people's mystic beasts were so mighty and domineering. They looked so beautiful. Qi Xianxian couldn't help but be startled. Then, she smiled and said, "Jojo, let's go." Arbor nodded, and the two of them flew onto the golden lion's back at the same time. When the little fatty Ko Hongwen saw this, he ran over like a ball and hurriedly called out, "Little sisters, give me a ride." "Who's your big sister?" The stoic face was expressionless as she glared at him coldly. "Men and women shouldn't touch each other." Scram. Qi Xianxian was even more direct. She lightly patted the lion's head. The lion leaped up and carried the two girls down the mountain, running steadily. The little fatty, Ko Hongwen, followed the golden lion down the mountain with tears streaming down his face. He waved his hands and shouted, "Little girls, wait for me." "Miss." The golden-haired lion ran very fast. After going down the mountain, it ran in the direction of Anka City. They were supposed to go straight to the lava mountains from the south gate of Anka City, but because of that lousy map, they went to the north gate. Going in the opposite direction, going in circles in an unknown mountain for such a long time really made people speechless. If they circled around Anka City, they would definitely waste a lot of time. The best way was to pass through Anka City and go straight to the south gate. "Ladies! Wait for me." Little fatty began to run wildly. Looking from afar, it was as if he was looking at a giant watermelon that was constantly rolling. The city gate was right in front of them. Arbor turned to look at little fatty, and a faint trace of surprise flashed through his eyes. He couldn't tell that little fatty was also someone with remarkable abilities. It took them more than 2 hours to run from the nameless mountain to the north gate of Anka City. They didn't stop for even a moment during this time. Little fatty was actually able to keep up with the golden lion's speed. He was also an incredible guy. Chapter 16:12. Looks like he's a speed ability user. Arbor blinked. "We're almost at the city gate." Qi Xianxian looked at the toll checkpoint at the city gate with disgust in her eyes. "Jojo, should we get off?" "No need. Let's charge through," Arbor said coldly. Qi Xianxian froze for a moment before she laughed out loud. "Okay." Little fatty, who had been running behind them, was dumbfounded when he saw that the two vigorous girls had no intention of summoning their mystical beasts even though they were already at Anka City's gate. Fuck, where did these two girls come from? Were they planning to charge into Anka City's checkpoint just like that? At this moment, the crowd in the queue had already discovered in horror that a golden-haired lion twice the size of an adult lion was running towards them. Everyone screamed and dodged to the sides. Their eyes were filled with disbelief as they looked at the two girls on the golden lion's back. Heavens, are they planning to charge into the city just like that? "Ladies, you..." The golden-haired lion leaped up, its forehooves landing heavily on the dusty ground, rolling up a string of sand grains. "Whoa! Mother, it's a lion. Don't go over there. Be careful not to fall. Who dares to trespass into Anka City?" The two lines of people moved aside, leaving a path in the middle. The 5 or 6 ruffians who had set up the toll checkpoint at Anka City's gate saw the golden lion and the girls charging into the city. "Do you want to die? Do you think you can trespass anywhere? Get off your mounts right now." The ruffians cursed angrily. Mystical beasts are not allowed to be summoned in Anka City without permission. Fuck, put away your mystical beasts. Right now. Ah! The ruffians screamed. The reason was that not only did the golden lion not stop, but it also sped up and rushed towards their checkpoint. The girls sitting on the lion's back laughed. "Get out of my way, all of you. Get out if you don't want to die." Roar! The golden-haired lion pounced and stepped heavily on the fence of the checkpoint, crushing the fence into pieces. Bang! A ruffian soldier was directly sent flying by this force and fell to the ground miserably. Ah, you guys. Another ruffian had just pulled out a steel knife from his waist and was about to counterattack. A blue talisman flew towards him and landed on his body with a whoosh. He paused with the knife in his hand and looked at the oncoming golden lion in horror. Roar! Roar, roar! The golden lion roared angrily and kicked the guy away. After a loud rumbling sound, the golden lion shook off the broken fence in front of the city gate. It carried Arbor and Qi Xianxian and rushed into the city gate. The citizens lining up to enter the city were all dumbfounded. They couldn't believe their eyes. The two little girls had broken into Anka City in broad daylight. The soldiers were all frozen at the city gate by the body-securing talisman, standing there in a pitiful manner. After the two little girls rushed into the city, they quickly ran toward a deserted road. The little fatty ran into the city with his short legs and panted heavily. He looked at the soldiers sympathetically and patted one of them on the shoulder. "Brother, I'm going in first." Chapter 16:13. The soldiers were immobilized by the body-securing talisman and naturally could not give him any response. The little fatty took large strides and chased in the direction that the golden lion had left. The commoners at the city gate looked at each other and waited for a while. Seeing that there was no other movement, they all ran out from the corners and surrounded the soldiers who were immobilized by the body-securing talisman, sizing them up curiously. These soldiers usually flaunted their prowess at the city gate and it was rare to see them suffer together. Everyone was secretly laughing in their hearts. After looking at their ugly state, everyone hurriedly rushed into the city. After all, it was rare that they did not have to pay to enter the city. When the guards of the city lord's mansion heard the news and rushed to the north gate, Arbor, Qi Xianxian and the rest had already disappeared. The two of them had already charged out of the south gate and similarly used thunderous methods to subdue the guards of the south gate and left without saying a word. Qi Xianxian laughed out loud, "Awesome. This is how we should deal with this bunch of people. They are simply shameless. They still dare to ask us for the entrance fee. Once, twice, thrice, they still have the nerve to stretch out their hands and ask for it." Scram! Arbor glanced sideways and did not see the little fatty's round body rolling over. It seemed that he had thrown the little fatty away. The two of them exited the south gate and ran in the direction of the red river marked on the map. Huff, huff, huff. Not long after, the little fatty appeared at the south gate, sweating profusely. He looked at the dozen or so soldiers who were also immobilized and grinned. "Sigh, I ran to death." "Really?" The little fatty exhaled a few times and walked around the soldiers twice as he clicked his tongue. "How pitiful, your opponent is actually such a strong great talisman master." From the north gate to the south gate, that crazy little girl had thrown at least 50 body-securing talismans. How could they fight against such a great talisman master? Little Fatty sighed and heard footsteps coming from afar. It must be the guards of the city lord's mansion. They were rushing towards the south city gate. This bunch of idiots, who knew where they had gone? The little fatty grinned and then turned around and ran out of the southern city gate. Following the tracks of the golden lion, they soon arrived in front of a red river. It was unknown if this river had been heated up by the temperature of the nearby lava mountains, but the entire river seemed to be boiling. Little Fatty picked up a stone and threw it into the water. With a light "cheet" sound, the stone was swallowed into dregs by the water in a matter of minutes. The little fatty was speechless. He turned his head and looked along the wide river. His eyes suddenly lit up. He hurriedly ran over and waved vigorously at the two girls standing in front of the river. "Little sisters, it's so good to see you." Arbor turned around and saw little Fatty rolling in front of them like a big watermelon. She pursed her lips and expressionlessly summoned the divine bird Qing Wan. When little Fatty saw this, he hurriedly went forward and cupped his hands towards Arbor. Little girl, give me a ride. Look, this big bird is so big. I'll just sit on its tail. I won't be rude to the two of you. Where's your own Xian beast? Qi Xian placed her hands on her hips and sized up the little fatty before she bluntly asked the little fatty. Chapter 16:14. I. The little fatty scratched his head and chuckled, my mystic beast isn't as powerful as yours. It can't fly or run. What mystic beast is that? Qi Xian glanced at him and asked suspiciously, let it out for us to see. Okay. The little fatty suddenly stretched out one of his short legs and assumed a horse stance as he muttered, come out, my Xian beast. Qi Xian looked at the little fatty and couldn't help but find it funny. Could it be that every time this fellow summoned a mystic beast, he had to mutter for half a day? By the time he finished muttering and assumed a posture to welcome the mystic beast, the other party would have already beaten him to the ground. What kind of mystic beast was this? It was so arrogant and slow. Boom! A dull sound landed on the wetland beside the Red River. Arbor and Qi Xian looked and couldn't help but twitch their mouths. Lying in front of them was a huge tortoise the size of a small hill. No wonder the little fatty said that it couldn't run or fly. This tortoise lazily lay beside the Red River, as if it was a tortoise sunbathing and couldn't wait to flip its belly over and bask in the sun. From the moment it came out until now, it didn't even glance at its master. It was extremely arrogant. The little fatty smiled embarrassedly at the two ladies and hurriedly cupped his hands towards Arbor. Young lady, please give me a ride. If there were no flying beasts to cross the Red River, then there was nothing he could do. In any case, this Red River definitely couldn't be crossed by a ferry. Even the sturdy rocks couldn't withstand the Red River for a second, let alone a wooden boat. Wouldn't entering the water be seeking death? Hey, look! Qi Xian squatted down and swept the sand with her small hand. After sweeping away the sand, a stone tablet was revealed half buried in the soil. There were 3 large words written on it, Lava Crossing. Damn, this isn't a red river at all. This is lava. Arbor's lips curved. Naturally, there is a lot of lava buried under the lava mountain range. This was naturally not surprising. What was strange was that this lava river should have overflowed from very deep underground. Moreover, it had already formed the scale of a river. Instead, it became a natural barrier for the top academies. Master, there is a defensive shield above 100 meters. It is very strong and cannot be broken. Qingyuan flapped its wings and jumped to Arbor's side. Over 100 meters. In other words, Qingyuan could not fly too high under this defensive barrier. Otherwise, it would not be able to enter the range of the defensive barrier and would still be suppressed. But if he was forced to fly at a low altitude, her gaze was focused on the lava. Suddenly, a piece of raw meat appeared between her fingers and she threw it into the lava. The piece of meat was thrown high into the air before it fell into the lava. In just a few seconds, 17 to 18 1-meter-long sword-toothed red fish jumped out of the lava and bit onto the piece of meat. After competing with each other to tear it apart, the piece of meat was instantly turned into minced meat. Qi Xuanchuan's face turned slightly pale. Looking at the 1-meter-long sword-toothed red fish that jumped out of the lava, she felt that under the sunlight, the fangs of the sword-toothed red fish emitted an eerie cold light. Little Fatty also shuddered. There are actually mutated red fish in the lava. This was too strange. How did the saber-toothed red fish survive in such a scorching lava? Chapter 16:15. Nothing is impossible, Arbor said indifferently. Even humans could change according to the environment, let alone animals. Looking at those sword-toothed red fish, the average one was more than a meter long, and a few were even 2 meters long. Not only were their mouths full of fangs, but even their skin was covered in a layer of fiery red substance. It was probably this substance that protected them from being melted into ashes by the boiling lava. These strange fish should be equivalent to an intermediate level 3 zombie. Arbor speculated, look at how they can jump 100 meters. The Top Academy deliberately set up a defensive barrier above 100 meters. Forcing the intruder into the attack range of the school of fish, it was truly a natural barrier. Arbor glanced at the lava mountain range behind the lava crossing. Before they even got close, they could already feel the heat waves rolling towards them. You've decided. Decided what? To go to such an unreliable academy, Arbor said indifferently. If she guessed correctly, the entrance test of the Top Academy was to successfully pass the lava crossing. Looking at the lava crossing, which formed a ring-shaped water vein that surrounded the entire lava mountain range, the test was obvious. Little Fatty nodded vigorously. I heard that the Top Academy can conduct one-on-one guidance and training. It has all 5 spiritual elements. It's very suitable for us to enter and study. Xiao Mu inwardly rolled her eyes before coldly saying, it's best if you don't hold out too much hope. Why? Little Fatty and Qi Xianxian asked in unison. Because the disappointment is usually greater. After saying that, he put away Qing Wan and released a blazing blood phoenix. Little Fatty's eyeballs were about to fall out as he watched from the side. Xiao Xiao, Xiao Jie. You actually have 2 mystic beasts. Is this a FF Phoenix? Forgive Little Fatty for stuttering, but he had rarely seen a mystic cultivator who could have 2 mystic beasts at once. Little Fatty didn't notice that Qi Xianxian, who was standing beside him, was already petrified. Qi Xianxian was very clear that Jojo still had a little white snake by his side. The blazing blood fire phoenix proudly swayed its tail and flew to Arbor's side. When she leaped up, the fire phoenix soared into the sky with a whoosh. It spread its wings, which were burning with flames. The man and the phoenix had just flown to the middle of the lava when they heard a splash. Countless saber-toothed red fish that were over a meter long jumped out of the lava and opened their mouths that were filled with sharp teeth, biting towards Arbor and the fire phoenix. Screech! The blood-blaze phoenix let out an angry cry, and a raging wall of fire instantly appeared beneath it. Like building a wall of flames, the sword-toothed red fish that jumped up to bite were all smashed down by the wall of flames. Arbor pointed at Qi Xianxian and the Little Fatty. The blood-blaze phoenix turned around and dived towards the 2 of them. Qi Xianxian and Little Fatty's hearts thumped wildly at the same time. Although they knew that the phoenix would not attack them, they could only watch helplessly as an incomparably huge phoenix swooped down towards them. The heat wave that assaulted their faces instantly enveloped them. That kind of feeling was incomparably satisfying. Arbor reached out and pulled, throwing the 2 of them directly onto the fire phoenix's back. The fire phoenix turned around, and its wings drew a lonely arc in the air as it flew towards the opposite side of the lava. To make up for yesterday's episode. Chapter 16:16. The saber-toothed red fish leaped out of the lava and jumped 100 meters, but because it crashed into the fire wall, it was slapped down by the heat of the flames. Qi Xianxian and Little Fatty both heaved a sigh of relief and sat upright on the blazing blood fire phoenix's back, not daring to look around. After a sharp and clear cry, the blazing blood fire phoenix flapped its huge wings and fluttered to the front of the lava mountain range, flying straight up the mountain. Little Fatty instantly felt that hugging the little girl's thigh was the right thing to do. Otherwise, it would be an impossible task for that little tortoise of his to climb up this 1,000-level lava mountain range with only his little tortoise. The blazing blood fire phoenix's aura was vast and mighty, and its heavy ancient phoenix aura directly crushed all the hibernating beasts on the lava mountain range. The beasts that originally wanted to climb out to take a look at Feng Zi could only hug their heads and lie in their cave abodes, not daring to come out. This was the first time Arbor realized that this egg was so useful. She raised her small hand and rubbed its furry head, saying earnestly, "Giving you so much black spirit jade isn't completely ineffective." Ever since knowing that there might be black spirit jade in the frigid pond, the little fellow had always left it alone. Actually, she was really a very generous little master to her beasts. The blazing blood fire phoenix squatted in the frigid pond and ate more than 1,000 pieces of black spirit jade, but she didn't say anything and just let it do as it pleased. Even when Little Tree repeatedly slandered her and asked her to kick that wasteful phoenix egg out of the frigid pond, she didn't pay attention to Little Bull. Black spirit jade was not only good for replenishing the 5 spirits, but also had a great nourishing effect on beasts of divine beast rank and above. It was a pity that this plaything was something that could only be chanced upon and not sought. Who knew if there were any extra black spirit jade at the bottom of the frigid pond? Arbor's gaze flickered. She raised her small hand and gently rubbed the blazing blood fire phoenix's head again. "Huahua, Master wants to ask you something. Is there any more black spirit jade at the bottom of the frigid pond?" The blazing blood fire phoenix nodded vigorously. "There's still a lot. Master, when are you going to take a look?" "I'll bring you there." Arbor nodded. "Don't worry. Let's go to the peak first." "Hey, look! There seems to be a person standing on the rock." Arbor looked in the direction that little Fatty was pointing at. Indeed, on a protruding rock at the peak of the mountain, there stood a fool waving a little yellow flag. He looks like a fool." The little yellow flag was clearly being waved at them. "Waving what?" "Wave your sister." If he did not bring the students up the mountain, the students would have to think of a way by themselves. Arbor looked at him expressionlessly. "No one." "Qi xian xian, dot. Little Fatty, dot. Screech." The blazing blood fire phoenix let out a shrill cry and flew towards the peak of the lava mountain range. The force of the dive brought about gusts of strong wind, rolling up sand and stones that almost blinded the eyes of everyone on the peak. Many female students subconsciously reached out to cover the sand in front of their eyes, choking on the sand and coughing. Boom! The phoenix spread its wings and landed on the peak of the mountain. Its gorgeous fiery red feathers gently spread out and almost everyone was forced to retreat. There was almost no place to stand. Wow! Are my eyes playing tricks on me? This? Is it a mystic beast? Chapter 16-17. I think I've seen it before in the Book of Divine Beasts and Strange Creatures. It's an ancient fire phoenix. Damn, which aristocratic family's young miss came to this godforsaken academy to study? Arbor stretched out her hand. The blazing blood fire phoenix let out a cry, turned into a ball of fire, and rushed into her body, returning to Paradise Planet to rest. There were many young men and women standing on the peak. Many pairs of eyes looked at Arbor, Qi Xianxian, and Little Fatty in astonishment. Qi Xianxian and Little Fatty, who were following Miss Jiao, suddenly felt a huge pressure. What was going on with this situation where everyone was looking at them? Cough, cough, cough. The pitiful guy waving the little yellow flag on the rock quickly flew down, choking on a mouthful of sand. He squinted his eyes and said angrily, "You guys. Who are you guys? Why did you trespass into our elite academy?" Arbor turned her head and looked coldly at the young man. He was dressed in a green robe, which was very plain. He had thick eyebrows and big eyes, and looked very silly. Qi Xianxian put her hands on her waist and shouted angrily, "Didn't your academy recruit students and ask us to come? You still have the nerve to say that? Setting such a difficult test, are you recruiting students or trying to kill people?" What did you say? What test? The Red River at the foot of the mountain is formed by lava. It's surrounded by the mountain. Other than flying, how can you walk? The green-robed young man was reprimanded by Qi Xianxian, and he stammered, We sent people to the foot of the mountain a few days ago to receive you. You missed the time to go up the mountain. Who knew that this was the last day, and there were still people coming up the mountain? Moreover, they came up the mountain riding on a fire phoenix. This was too fucking high profile. Moreover, he had been standing on the climbing rock and waving the little yellow flag for them to land at the entrance. In the end, these people actually flew all the way to the peak and landed where the crowd gathered. It was obvious that they wanted to show off for everyone to see. As for the other students, they would usually arrive at the Red River 1 or 2 days in advance. Looking at these 3 people, it was obvious that they came from rich families. They couldn't bear hardships at all, and they weren't even serious about studying. Put away your disdain and guesses. Arbor suddenly stretched out his leg and drew a dark gray circle on the ground with the tip of his foot. Fight me if you're not convinced. Qi Xianxian. Little fatty. Great aunt is so direct. But why did he like this temperament so much? The more he looked at her, the more he liked her. The first one to step out of the circle loses and must apologize. Arbor stood in the circle and beckoned the young man with his finger. Come. Cut the crap. Let's fight then, where's the time to talk nonsense? Everyone was speechless. What was going on? Before they could recover from the shock of seeing an ancient fire phoenix, they were stunned by the scene in front of them that said, "If you want to fight, come on." The green-robed young man was obviously amused. He lifted his robe and stepped into the circle. He said angrily, "Little girl, it's not good to be too proud. You must know that there's always someone better than you. Always maintain a humble and cautious attitude." Boom! Xiao Mu grabbed his arm and, with a flip of her hand, she pinned the green-clothed man to the ground, causing his left cheek to crash into the dirt. Chapter 16-18. Only when the green-clothed man felt his face come into contact with the ground and smelled the scent of yellow soil did he realize with shock that he had been pressed to the ground with a single hand in the blink of an eye. Oh my God! He was a man, no, he was a man who was about to break through to become a level 2 spirit master, but he was actually instantly put down by a girl who looked like she was 14 or 15. How could he endure this? I don't need to be cautious when dealing with you guys. Arbor let go of her hand and took half a step back. She narrowed her eyes and waved at him. Again. The green-clothed man only felt a burning sensation on his face, and he crawled up from the ground with his face covered in grime. He looked at Xiao Mu in embarrassment and coughed lightly as he said, "Little miss, I was careless just now. This time I won't hold back, you have to be careful." Boom! Arbor dodged and quickly closed in on him. She lifted her leg and kicked. Even though the green-clothed man had already reacted quickly and stretched out his 2 hands to cover his body with spiritual energy, he still couldn't withstand Arbor's fierce kick. In an instant, the green-clothed man flew out of the circle, and the surrounding students hurriedly retreated. After the man was kicked out of the circle, he fell to the ground with a thud. This time, everyone looked at Arbor with a bit of fear in their eyes. The first time she had single-handedly subdued a level 2 spirit master, it could be said that it was due to luck. But now, in the instant of a direct hit, the level 2 spirit master couldn't even block one of her moves. This was strength. Following Qiao Mu's light footsteps forward, the surroundings were deathly silent. Everyone subconsciously retreated a few steps, emptying out a crescent-shaped space in the center. Arbor walked in front of the green-clothed man and looked at him coldly. "Apologize." The green-clothed man couldn't suppress the bitterness in his heart. He nodded and said softly, "I'm sorry, it was my wild guess. Be more careful next time. If you don't understand the situation, don't look at people with contempt," Arbor said coldly. "We just got lost, that's why we're late." Little Fatty, who was still immersed in the words "this little girl is so formidable," slipped and almost fell. The corners of his mouth couldn't help but twitch a few times as he cursed in his heart. What an honest little grand aunt. Actually, it was fine if he didn't add the last sentence. "What are you all doing?" Just as the crowd was chattering away, a cold voice swept through the crowd, instantly suppressing everyone's voices. A middle-aged man in his 40s slowly walked over. His eyes were as sharp as an eagle's, and they immediately locked onto Arbor's group. "Are you the ones causing trouble?" The little fatty and Qi Xianxian met each other's eyes before striding forward in unison to stand next to Qiao Mu and look at that middle-aged man together. The middle-aged man sneered, "Were you the ones who rode the fire phoenix to the peak and caused panic?" Little fatty sneered, "A mystical beast can cause them to panic. If you're so weak, you might as well stay at home and embroider. What's the point of cultivating and walking the path of immortality?" Arbor's mouth curved slightly and nodded in agreement. Qi Xianxian mocked, "Needles prick embroidery. You might as well stay at home and be a young master or young mistress." "You!" The group of students' faces turned green and white. Chapter 16-19. The middle-aged man pursed his lips and looked coldly at the three of them. "Ladies and young masters of aristocratic families, if you want to show off, then you've come to the wrong place. You should go to the 4 great academies of Sun, Moon and Stars. That is where the real celebrities gather," the middle-aged man said coldly. Arbor was instantly impatient. Why did she meet so many self-righteous people everywhere she went? Wouldn't it be better to find a natural abode and cultivate on my own? How could it be worth wasting my time on these inexplicable people and matters? After making up her mind, the little fellow decisively turned around and left. She didn't even bother to say a word and directly waved at Qi Xianxian and little Fatty who were behind her. The middle-aged man was stunned for a moment. He really didn't expect the student in front of him to have such a bad temper. After saying a few words, she immediately turned around and left. She didn't even bother to explain herself. "Jojo!" Qi Xianxian hurriedly chased after her. Jojo wasn't even here, what was the point of her staying here? Little Fatty turned around and looked at the middle-aged man, then also ran towards the 2 ladies. "Wait for me, let's go down the mountain together." "You!" The middle-aged man secretly clenched his fist and sneered at the 3 of them. "So arrogant and unsociable. You're not suitable to study in the top academies. Yes, you're not welcome here. Hurry up and leave." The group of students also started to shout at the same time. Arbor turned her head and glanced at them in disdain. She coldly said, "Trash like you are not fit to be my classmates." She could feel a strong sense of rejection from these people. She didn't know why, even though it was the first time she met them, these people were rejecting her, Qi Xianxian and little Fatty. Since that was the case, why should she treat them with a generous attitude? This little fellow had always been someone who would respect you tenfold. If you offended her, she would return the favor tenfold. Hence, she really didn't like these students. If they weren't welcome, then so be it. She didn't have to stay in this lousy academy. Arbor walked a few steps and was about to summon the blazing blood phoenix to bring them away. All of a sudden, a transparent ladder descended from the sky one after another. At first glance, the ladder was very transparent, but when he looked at it again, he couldn't help but feel slightly shocked. It turned out that this ladder was actually built with water spirits, layer upon layer, as if it had fallen from the 9 heavens. Looking up, one simply couldn't see the end of it. Wow! What a powerful ability to control the spiritual water. Arbor and the other two blinked their eyes and looked up at the sky. It wasn't just the 3 of them. In fact, all the other students on the lava peak were shocked as well. He had never seen such a shocking scene before. The water spirit stairs spread out and landed on the ground, shining brightly one layer after another, as if that person had an endless amount of spiritual energy that he could squander as he pleased. When the middle-aged man saw the water spirit ladder, he hurriedly bowed in the direction of the ladder. Wei Wei greets Dean Yun. The other disciples weren't stupid. When they saw Instructor Wei Wei bowing respectfully towards the southeast, they hurriedly followed suit and bowed. They saw a man in plain clothes with loose long hair and a cold expression walking down the stairs. His walking speed didn't seem fast, but in a breath's time, he had already arrived in front of Arbor and the other two. Chapter 1620. The man's aloof gaze instantly locked onto Arbor's left wrist. He could faintly see a jade-green color flash across the flawless jade bracelet. The man's eyes flickered, and his gaze shifted up to land on a small face that was as cold as ice. He was startled and asked, "You're a disciple of the Holy Water Sect?" Arbor was also startled. Only then did she recall that Murong Sun mentioned in her letter that she only needed to show her jade bracelet to the principal of a top-notch academy. She had forgotten about this before. But what could she do even if she remembered now? She had already decided not to stay in this troublesome academy anymore. The little fellow was an unrestrained person who did not want to be restrained by anything. If you insist on doing things according to the rules with her, then I'm sorry, but please scram. What's your name? Arbor swept that man a glance and unwillingly replied, Arbor. The plainclothes man nodded and beckoned to her. Come with me. Instructor Wei Wei's eyes nearly popped out of their sockets when he saw this. He hastily walked up to block Principal Yun's path and straightforwardly said, Principal, these students haven't taken the entrance test yet, so logically speaking, you can't directly bring her into the academy. This is against the rules. The middle-aged man said straightforwardly, moreover, these people have been behaving like young masters and misses from patrician families from start to finish. They don't know the immensity of heaven and earth and only know how to cause trouble. It's truly inappropriate for them to stay in the academy and ruin the learning atmosphere here. It's fine. Unexpectedly, Principal Yun tossed 2 words at the middle-aged man after he said a bunch of things. This truly was a bit. The middle-aged man only felt that his efforts were strenuous and unrewarding. When he looked up again, Principal Yun looked like he had already made up his mind, so he shut his mouth and did not say anything else. Principal Yun beckoned to Arbor again. Come with me. Arbor was taken aback. Although this principal's expression was aloof, his attitude towards her was still quite amiable. As the saying went, don't slap a smiling person. The little fellow naturally could not go against his wishes, so she walked behind him. There seemed to be a voice in Arbor's heart that kept telling her that she had to follow him, she had to follow him. Wait. Arbor turned his head and looked at little Fatty and Qi Xianxian. The 2 of them came with me. If we want to leave, we will leave together. If we want to stay, we will stay together. Dean Yun turned to look at Qi Xianxian and little Fatty before nodding and saying, Wei Wei. Dean. The middle-aged man bowed. Arrange for the 2 of them to take the entrance test with everyone else. Wei Wei was stunned for a moment. He understood Dean Yun very well. Since he had already made a decision, there was no point in saying anything more. Thus, he nodded and said yes. There were stone huts all over the mountain. The rocks were all crimson red. Perhaps it was due to the influence of the lava circulation deep underground, but the entire lava mountain range looked bright red. Arbor followed Yun Zong all the way and passed by many small stone houses made of red bricks. When the two of them reached the peak of the lava mountain, Dean Yun suddenly stopped and turned to look at her. "You're Arbor." Arbor nodded. I'm Arbor." Yun Zong sighed. "You are a disciple of the Holy Water sect, so you can stay and study in our top-notch academy with peace of mind in the future. You should also be new here, so there are still many things you need to learn. Have you comprehended the power of the 5 spirits?" Arbor nodded. "Activate the power of the 5 spirits in your body and let me see. I'm going to catch up on my sleep tomorrow." Chapter 16:21. Arbor raised her small hand, and a winding stream of water spiraled out from between her fingers. Yun Cheong's gaze flickered. Holy water. The stream of water in Arbor's hand suddenly condensed into a ball of water, bobbing up and down on her small palm. Yun Cheong nodded. "You haven't even broken through to the spirit realm, but you can." Before he could finish, the stream of water in Arbor's hand suddenly turned into ice and snow. With a slight wave of her hand, the snowflakes were flung into the distance, crashing heavily into the crimson mountain wall. After a few sizzling sounds, a row of tiny holes of the same size was punched into the sturdy mountain wall, with unparalleled precision. Yun Cheong's gaze flickered, and then he retracted his expression, turning to look at Arbor. "Not bad. You can already condense water into ice, and turn ice into snow. Your basic control of spirit energy is also quite complete. Your current goal is to break through to the spirit realm as soon as possible and stabilize the spirit energy in your body." Yun Cheong stood with his hands behind his back, turning to look at her. "In the future, you will follow me to the cloud-piercing cliff to cultivate. I will personally guide you. You want to take me as your disciple?" Arbor was startled and asked. Yun Cheong's voice paused slightly, and he asked, "Are you willing?" Arbor immediately shook her head like a rattledrum. This time, it was Yun Cheong's turn to be stunned. This little fellow didn't know who he was, the famous Sir Lu Yun of the 6 prefectures continent. He wanted to take her as his disciple, but he was rejected. Did he not care about his reputation? "Why?" Yun Cheong asked unhappily. What a blind child. As expected of that woman's disciple, even her brain circuits were so different from others. "I won't take anyone as my master in the future." The little fellow suddenly turned around, using the back of her head to face Yun Cheong, her eyes fixed on the mountain peak that pierced the clouds in the distance. There were a total of 103 peaks in the lava mountain range, and the distance between the peaks was quite far. What entered her eyes was a sea of red clouds. For some reason, Yun Cheong felt that this little figure was filled with desolation and loneliness. After a long time, Yun Cheong made an "oh" sound, carelessly reaching out to caress the back of the little fellow's head. "Then, do you plan to take the entrance test with them?" Arbor turned his head and nodded. "What if Wei Wei makes things difficult for you again?" "Don't tell me you want to leave again," Yun Cheong said indifferently. Arbor blinked. "Can I beat him?" "Who?" "Wei Wei." It was the middle-aged tutor who kept saying that a young lady from an aristocratic family like her was not welcome. A faint smile flashed through Yun Fiang's eyes. He shook his head and said, "Wei Wei is a level 12 great spiritual master. With your strength, you can deal with spiritual masters below level 7. As for Wei Wei, unless you risk your life." Yun Fiang felt that this little fellow in front of him was full of secrets. Her strength could not be judged based on her current realm. Of course, Arbor wouldn't fight to the death with that crazy mentor, even though his tone was very annoying. However, there were hundreds and thousands of people in the Great Thousand Worlds. Arbor knew that he was not a flower. Naturally, he could not make everyone like him. There were those who liked him, and naturally there were those who hated him. At most, he would just ignore him in the future. Oh. Then I'll let him go, Arbor muttered stiffly, turning his little head and walking away. Yun Cheong couldn't help but find it funny, but he didn't stop him from leaving. Only Xiao Mu herself was clear on one thing. Chapter 1622. It seemed like no one who became Arbor's master had a good ending. Murong Sun was like that, and so was Long Chuyun. She better not acknowledge anyone as her master in the future to avoid harming other people. Xiao Mu returned to the group of people who were preparing to take the entrance test. Little Fatty and Qi Xianxian happily ran over and said in unison, "Jojo, you're back." Qi Xianxian immediately turned to glare fiercely at Little Fatty. "Shoo shoo shoo, who's your Jojo?" "I'm the one who called you Jojo." Arbor smiled and nodded. "I plan to participate in the entrance test with you guys." "Okay." We were just fretting. Just now, Instructor Wei said that we should form a 5-person team each. Their entrance test is to go to the depths of Lava Mountain Range to train. Qi Xianxian shrugged. She felt like this academy was a bit of a scam. How were they supposed to break through? Whose school's entrance exam would actually start with a real battle with real swords and spears? Even a large academy like Sunlight Academy's second test was to fight in a simulated environment. And it was in the depths of Lava Mountain Range. Everyone knew that the deeper one went into the mountain range, the more dangers there would be. "Hey, Little Fatty, do you want to join our team?" "I'm Che Rumen, the team leader." A voluptuous girl around 17 or 18 years old walked up with 3 male team members. She crossed her arms and coldly looked at Arbor and Qi Xianxian. "Is Little Fatty something you can call me?" "I'm not that close to you." Little Fatty immediately retorted. Qi Xianxian turned her face away and giggled. Che Rumen's face stiffened, and she angrily glared at Little Fatty. Xiao Mu curled her lips and sneered mockingly at Che Rumen. Interesting, he actually dared to poach Arbor in front of her. Damn Fatty. Don't think they're amazing just because they have an ancient fire phoenix. Didn't you hear the rules just now? Instructor Wei said that once we enter Lava Mountain Range, everyone's mystic conscious will be sealed, so we can't summon mystic beasts. Ha, Fatty. I advise you to listen to Che Rumen and leave your trash team as soon as possible. In any case, you are a level 15 mystic cultivator. Don't tell me you want to stay in this kind of team and be burdened by 2 women with low cultivation, a stocky man beside Che Rumen said in a very disdainful tone. Watch your mouth, okay? The Little Fatty pointed at the stocky man and coldly shouted, "Both of them are my friends. If you dare to bully my friends, you'll have to ask my fist first. You don't know what's good for you." Che Rumen sneered, crossing her arms and looking around. "Is there anyone who wants to join our team? I'm a level 15 peak mystic cultivator. Of my 3 teammates, 2 are level 14 and 1 is a level 1 spirit master." Che Rumen's group immediately attracted the attention of many people after detonating their cultivation base. Most of them were people who had just entered Shuntian Prefecture from various lower star domains. Generally, it was already pretty good for their cultivation to reach level 14 Mystic Cultivator at the very most. Now that there was a level 1 Spirit Master in front of them, only a fool would not join their team. Che Rumen's small hand brushed past the stocky man's chest, intentionally or unintentionally, with the intention of teasing him. The latter straightened his back and hooked one arm around Che Rumen's well-developed and delicate body. He looked up at the sky with a self-satisfied smile on his lips. He was that level 1 spirit master, Li Qian. Chapter 1623. When the surrounding people heard that Che Rumen's team was so strong, they hastily and enthusiastically signed up to join. In the end, Che Rumen picked and proudly chose a level 14 Mystic Cultivator as her teammate. The people who were still busy forming teams stopped in their tracks and turned to look at Che Rumen's team. They chattered enviously, so strong. Che Rumen's team should be the strongest team among us. When Che Rumen heard this, she felt her face light up. She smiled smugly and crossed her arms as she stood in front of the 3 people. Little fatty, if you regret it, come find me. I can still give you one more chance. If it weren't for the fact that this little fatty was a level 15 Great Mystic Cultivator and was very powerful, she wouldn't have stuck her hot face to that fatty's cold butt time and time again. When Che Rumen said this, the level 14 Mystic Cultivator who just joined her team couldn't help but have an ugly expression. It felt like he was only a substitute. If the little fatty wanted to join, there was an 80% chance that he would still be kicked out of the team by Che Rumen. The middle-aged mentor, Wei Wei, who had been standing at the periphery of the crowd and watching coldly, said coldly, "Don't forget the rule I mentioned earlier. A team must have at least one support. Apothecaries, pill alchemists, physicians, speed ability users, and so on are all acceptable. However, let me give you a friendly reminder. I hope that each team will bring at least one pill alchemist or apothecary. You can't imagine the degree of danger in the depths of Lava Mountain Range." Che Rumen's team looked at each other in dismay. Che Rumen turned to look at the newly joined level 14 Mystic Cultivator. "Do you know how to support?" That person shook his head with a livid expression. Che Rumen shrugged. "Then I'm sorry. We need a level 14 Mystic Cultivator who can support. Just someone who knows a bit of simple medical skills will do." Someone who knows a bit of simple medical skills can also act as a support, Che Rumen thought. The middle-aged mentor, Wei Wei, was merely exaggerating to scare people. Which academy wouldn't send a mentor to accompany their students into a dangerous place to train? If there really was extreme danger, the mentor would definitely rush out to save them. Therefore, she felt that it was more reliable to bring along a team of teammates with top-notch attack power. She didn't really need those apothecaries and alchemists. They had already brought some medicine with them. At the critical moment, they could just take the medicine themselves. Why should they bring along a weakling who would get in the way? A man in his 20s walked out of the crowd. He had a wretched face and a protruding mouth. He looked at Che Rumen with a smile. Then, his shifty eyes moved to Arbor. He subconsciously licked his lips and said, "I'm a pharmacist." As he spoke, he released an extremely faint medicinal power. Arbor's gaze turned and then retracted. That monkey-faced man's gaze made her feel very uncomfortable. She had an impulse to dig out his eyes with her own hands. Che Rumen frowned slightly. She looked down on this sharp-mouthed monkey-cheeked man's face. He looked really wretched. But for the time being, he didn't have a better choice. He sized him up. "You're only level 13. "Yes, Mississippi. I'm a level 13 Mystic Cultivator." "Forget it. You'll do." Che Rumen arrogantly raised her chin and said, "But I'll say the ugly words first. Don't drag our team down at all times. Otherwise, I won't let you off." "Ah, I know, Honorable Miss." That wretched man bent his back and bowed with a smile. Chapter 1624. Just like that, Che Rumen's team was formed. This was the first 5-person adventurer team that was successfully formed. The stocky Li Qian domineeringly wrapped his bare paw around Che Ruman's slender waist and brought her to the periphery of the crowd. He arrogantly looked at the other people who were still forming teams and sneered, a mob. Fatty, why don't you go and form a team with someone else? You won't be able to form a team with two people who don't seem to have any cultivation, Qi Xianxian suggested with a grin. Not going. Little Fatty shook his head resolutely and said, we came here as a team. Do I, Fatty, look like someone who doesn't value loyalty? You guys bring me to the summit, and I'll protect you guys so that we can successfully complete the entrance test. Nobody will look down on each other. Furthermore, how low could the cultivation of a person who possessed the ancient phoenix beast be? He really didn't know if those people had brains. People who could form a contract with a mystic beast had to be at least a level 10 mystic cultivator, alright? Why didn't they have any cultivation? He reckoned that it was just a smokescreen from these two little girls. Only then did Qi Xianxian smile from the bottom of her heart. She patted Fatty's shoulder and said, not bad, Fatty. I, Qi Xianxian, will befriend you. Fatty chuckled mischievously. Arbor, who was standing silently at the side, was expressionless, but his heart inexplicably stirred slightly. Friend? You guys wait. I think I saw someone familiar. Qi Xianxian suddenly ran out of the crowd after saying that. Like a gust of wind, she swept past everyone at an incomparably fast speed, startling everyone who was busy forming teams. Fuck, how could a woman who didn't seem to have any cultivation be so fast? Stop right there. Qi Xianxian pounced on a person's back like a hungry tiger pouncing on its prey. She raised her fist and ruthlessly smashed it down. I-oh. That person, who was wrapped in a black cloak, hugged his head and scurried away like a rat as he cried out in alarm. Fuck, it's you. Little Fatty also recognized him. With a roar, he quickly jumped over. His speed was more than twice that of Qi Xuanxuan's. He was so fast that he was almost like a nimble ball. He leaped to the side of the man in the black cape in an instant, and his fists rained down on the man's head. How dare you sell me a fake map and make me walk so far in vain? You brat. Hand over my 10 spirit coins. You've got the wrong person. I don't know you guys at all. What fake map? The cloaked man shouted in a muffled voice. Teacher, save me. Instructor Wei Wei, who was watching from the sidelines, continued to remain silent. Qi Xianxian and Little Fatty's fists landed on the black-caped man's body. Hearing this, Qi Xianxian's fist paused. She turned to look at Little Fatty in astonishment. With an incredulous expression on her face, she asked, Are you serious? You spent 10 spirit coins to buy that lousy map? Little Fatty's fists continued to land. He turned his head and looked at Qi Xianxian. Aren't you? How much did you spend? I spent 1 spirit coin. Qi Xianxian covered her face. Little Fatty was instantly enraged. His fists rained down on the black-caped man's face as though they were free. Fuck, you stinky brat, how dare you treat me like this? What's the matter? Do you think I'm easy to fool just because I'm a man? Arbor didn't know why, but he had the urge to laugh. Chapter 1625. Rip, rip, rip. Qi Xianxian simply tore off the guy's black cloak. Who knew that the guy was only wearing a pair of nondescript shorts? When she tore off his cloak, his tender skin and 2 white legs were exposed. Ah, you pervert. Qi Xianxian held her face and screamed. She kept kicking the man whose cloak had been ripped off. The man in the black cloak lay on the ground with tears streaming down his face. Please, big sister, who tore off my cloak? Who made me expose my body? How dare you call me a pervert? She's the pervert, her whole family are perverts. Stop hitting me, stop hitting you too. The man in the black cloak wailed. I'm not a pervert, I'm your senior brother from year 2. Ah, 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 ah. It hurts so much. Stop hitting me. I am Mata, your senior brother from year 2. Little Fatty pulled Qi Xianxian over and looked suspiciously at the man who was lying on the ground with a bump on his head. You're from year 2. Oh my God, the two of you are too ruthless. The senior brother from year 2, whose legs were exposed and whose shorts were tattered by Little Fatty, stood up. Actually, the guy was supposed to be quite handsome, but his face was swollen by Little Fatty and Qi Xianxian, and his original appearance could not be seen. Teacher, he sold us a fake map. Qi Xianxian shouted angrily at Instructor Wei Wei, a student from your academy sold us a fake map. What fake map? How can that map be fake? Ma Ta shouted, unconvinced. It's obviously a real map, you just don't know how to read it. Arbor walked up quickly and tugged at Qi Xuanxuan's little paw. Qi Xianxian was so angry that she did not notice her actions. She turned her head and shouted at Instructor Wei Wei, Teacher, aren't you going to do something about it? Ma Ta was selling the map in Anka City under the Academy's instructions. Wei Wei said calmly, the fact that you were tricked can only mean one thing. You're too stupid. You. Qi Xianxian was so angry that her lungs were about to explode. She turned around and saw Mata, whose face was bruised and swollen, and laughed wretchedly. She was so angry that she kicked him. This time, Mata dodged. He patted his chest and shouted, Hey, little girl. You're so young, but your kicks are so fucking vicious. If I get kicked by your bloodline-ending kick, will there still be any happiness left in my life? Let me remind you that once the incense stick's time is up and you fail to form a team, you will be disqualified from the entrance test, Wei Wei said coldly. What? You're clearly picking on me. Qi Xianxian said angrily. Everyone will be treated equally. Qi Xianxian was so angry that her cheeks were puffed up. She turned her head and saw Mata smiling wretchedly. She raised her fist and rushed forward. You! Join our team. If you don't agree, I'll beat you to death. Everyone was stunned. Fuck, you can team up like this. Little Fatty secretly clenched his fists and praised, Xianxian, well done. Pull the map seller into the team, and beat him up if he doesn't like you. Perfect. Arbor's mouth twitched. She looked helplessly at her two unreliable teammates. Why did she feel that her team would turn into a team of clowns? Don't hit me. Please don't hit me. Chapter 1626. I'll join. Ah. Mata squatted to the side, holding his head pitifully as he cried out repeatedly. At least you know what's good for you. Qi Xianxian put her hands on her hips and shouted angrily. That works too. Some students who had yet to form a team angrily turned to look at Wei Wei. Teacher. He's a second-year senior. This kind of team formation doesn't conform to the rules. If you can also find a second or third-year senior to help you. Wei Wei said coldly. Those people immediately quieted down. What a joke, where would they find a second or third-year senior? Probably only an idiot like the black-cloaked man would sneak out to watch the show and get caught. However, looking at the black-cloaked man, he couldn't even defeat a girl with no cultivation. His cultivation definitely wasn't that high. No wonder he could only stay in the academy and could only stay in the second grade forever. He still hadn't graduated. The rest of the people hurriedly went around to form teams. Qi Xiao Mu's group of 4 stood together, and their gazes swept past the group of repulsive people on the field. Looks like you have to find a support. Ma Ta took out a black robe from his inner world and wrapped himself in it. He then pretended to be a dog as he stood next to Xiao Mu and told them with a grin. No need. Qi Xianxian snorted coldly. Our team already has a support. Oh. Ma Ta was slightly startled. He just smiled and didn't say anything else. Countdown of 5 minutes. Wei Wei reminded coldly, his face expressionless. Some of the people who had yet to form a team started to panic. They casually asked others if they wanted a support and quickly formed a team. Groups of 5 formed and stood beside Che Rumen one after another. Arbor frowned. At this time, there was basically no time to choose a team. The remaining people hurriedly came forward, wanting to join Arbor's team. Scram! Qi Xianxian shouted coldly. Didn't you say that you don't welcome us? Why are you trying to rely on us now? Do you have any shame? Where's your shame? Where's your shame? Arbor smirked and didn't say anything. Hey, little girl, don't let your emotions affect your decisions. There was less than a minute left. If they didn't hurry up and form a team, they would fail. Then, Instructor Wei Wei will make you roll down the mountain. Ma Ta chuckled. Why don't you give us a demonstration? Little Fatty turned his head and said. Fuck. What if we can't chat happily? Half a minute left. Have you all formed a team? Wei Wei's cold gaze fell on Arbor's group, and he laughed mockingly. A person can be arrogant, but they can't be too arrogant. You can't even form a basic team of 5. It's obvious that you don't have the ability to work together as a team, much less the ability to rally and organize. If you set your sights too high, your team will ultimately fail. Duanmu Qing, apothecary, join the team. All 5 of you are here. A cold voice traveled through the crowd into the ears of Arbor and the others. Following everyone's gaze, a tall young man slowly walked over. He wore a white shirt, and his black hair was only tied up with a hairband. He looked to be 19 years old, and his facial features were well defined as if they were carved by a knife. A pair of dark eyes emitted an icy chill, as deep as a cold ancient well, without any ripples. Arbor was practically glaring, his gaze locked onto the person who walked over. Chapter 1627. At that moment, she felt dizzy. There seemed to be some messy and impure images pouring into her mind. In the dark dungeon, a pair of expectant black eyes stared at her through a small window the size of a palm. He murmured, Chow chow, chow chow, hang in there, don't die. Live. Live with me. Brother Qing, it's so painful to live. Brother Qing, I can't hold on anymore. No, you have to hold on. Chow chow, master has already left me. You can't die. You have to live with me. We can definitely live. Jojo, there will be hope as long as you live. Their gazes met across the air, and their gazes met. At that moment, Duanmu Qing was slightly taken aback. His black eyes revealed some doubt as he stared deeply at Arbor. Arbor vaguely saw a patch of blood stained by red candles. There were several corpses lying on the ground in the bridal chamber. Pairs of horrified eyes stared fixedly at her, full of accusation. It was as if she was the main culprit. Brother Qing, don't worry about me. Hurry up and leave, he's coming. Hurry up. Arbor only saw a patch of scarlet in front of her eyes. In a daze, she seemed to see a beautiful woman running wildly out of the room. That face, that familiar face. Xiao Mu froze in place in shock, simply unable to believe the hazy scene before her eyes. Impossible, 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 impossible. How could she stand up in her previous life? Wasn't she crippled and paralyzed all this time? When did she stand up? What was going on in the bridal chamber? What was going on in front of her eyes? Impossible, she had already killed Qin Axin. She had already gotten rid of her inner demons. She should have remembered everything from her previous life. It was impossible for her to forget. Impossible. Arbor suddenly turned around and flew towards the mountain peak in the distance. Jojo. Qi Xianxian was stunned. She grabbed Duanmu Qing, who was still in a daze, and shouted at Instructor Wei Wei, "The 5 of us are here. We'll come over later." After saying that, he hurriedly chased in the direction of Arbor. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. They really couldn't figure out how these 2 little girls, who seemed to have no cultivation at all, could be so fast. Could it be that they had collectively misjudged him? Instructor Wei Wei didn't make things difficult for them. He only glanced coldly in the direction of Arbor where Qi Xianxian and Qi Xianxian had left. He turned his gaze to the remaining 3 people on the field. You can't even form a 5-man team. It shows how useless you are. It is not suitable for you to continue staying here. I will arrange for someone to send you down the mountain. The 3 unlucky bastards immediately howled, one louder than the other. Why should we go down the mountain? Instructor, this isn't fair. There are only 3 of us in the first place. Where are we supposed to find 5 people? It's those 2 senior brothers who broke the rules. The rules didn't specify that we can't invite senior brothers to join the team. Instructor Wei Wei glanced coldly at the 3 of them. It's you who are too weak. Go down the mountain immediately. What kind of lousy academy is this? What kind of lousy examination rules are this? One of the 3 immediately cursed with hatred in his heart. Who wants to study here? We can enter Star Splendor Academy or Dawn Academy with some spirit coins. They are after all one of the 4 great academies. The 6th watch ended. Chapter 1628. Instructor Wei Wei coldly glanced at the 3 of them. Forgive me for not seeing you off. Wei Wei had seen a lot of this kind of sour grapes mentality. The academy's recruitment policy was different from the so-called 4 great academies. If they thought that the top academies were the same as trash academies like Sun Moon Star Academy, then they should get lost early. Humph. The 3 of them left in a huff, glaring angrily at Wei Wei before leaving. They were disinclined to continue staying in such an unreasonable academy. One of them turned around and sneered at the students who had formed their teams. Don't think that you can enter this trash academy just because you formed a team. Who knows how many people can come out of the depths of the lava mountain range? That's right, your mystic senses have been sealed. You can't summon mystic beasts or move items in your inner worlds. Ha ha ha. I wish you all good luck. With that, the 3 of them slipped down the mountain. They left behind a group of students who had formed their teams but were still fearful. They looked at each other, and the uneasiness in their hearts increased slightly. The words of the people who left were not completely unreasonable. Deep into the heart of the lava mountain range was a dangerous place, but they couldn't summon mystic beasts or move items in their inner worlds. Wouldn't that make it difficult for them to move? Che Ruman chuckled. It's just a mere lava mountain range. Even if we don't use mystic senses, it won't be a problem for us. Wei Wei said, now, other than them, all the assistants in your team, step forward. Everyone couldn't help but look at each other. The monkey-cheeked man in Che Ruman's team smiled slyly. Why don't they use it? Because Duanmu Qing is a 3rd-year student of the academy. He is a pharmacist. As Academy instructors, we are very clear about the efficacy of the medicine. Wei Wei said coldly. The monkey-cheeked man pursed his lips and walked out of the team to release the medicinal efficacy in his body. I clearly released it just now. Wouldn't releasing it again consume the medicinal efficacy? What if we encounter danger and I don't have enough medicinal efficacy? Instructor, this isn't too good. Che Rumen curled her lips into a disdainful smile. She wouldn't place her hopes on such an unreliable teammate with a monkey-cheeked mouth. She arranged for him to join the team only because his special ability was an indispensable part of the team. Let him heal me. Ha, don't joke around. How could she put her precious life in the hands of an unfamiliar teammate? You. Your 3 teams are not qualified. All of you are to leave the mountain. What? The members of the 3 teams who were named could not help but turn pale with fright. You call yourselves doctors? Yet, he didn't even know how to bandage a wound. How could he pretend to be a doctor when he was all wrapped up in a mess? Go down the mountain. The group that had been tricked by the 3 people who had pretended to be doctors immediately became noisy. Then let's form a new team. All of you, go down the mountain. Damn it. This is too unfair. Why must we have a useless doctor by our side? Yes. We don't need any assistance to pass the entrance test. These are the rules. Wei Wei coldly glanced at the 3 teams that were protesting. An hour ago, I already made it clear to you. It's you who didn't follow the rules. You deserve to be eliminated. Damn it. Who wants to stay here? The members of the 3 teams flew into a rage out of humiliation. Chapter 1629. Let's go. Looking at the environment of this lousy academy, it won't be good to stay here and eat. That's right, let's go. If this place doesn't want us, there will be a place for us. Humph. After another group of people left while cursing, the scene fell into silence. I'll give you an hour to pack your luggage. When we officially enter the lava mountain range, I will seal all of your mystic senses. At that time, not only will your mystic beasts be unusable, your inner worlds will also be unusable, Wei Wei said coldly. It's not too late to back out now. After entering the depths of the lava mountain range, whether you live or die will depend on your own efforts. I won't help you. TSK. Che Rumen looked away in disdain. She didn't believe it. If they encountered that kind of life and death crisis, would the instructors of a top academy look on coldly and not lend a hand? Did they not want the academy's reputation anymore? Even if you encounter a large mystic beast or even a spirit beast, I won't help you. Think about it yourself. If you want to back out, do it now. When Wei Wei's voice fell, the 23 teams on the field, except for Little Fatty and the other 2, let out a burst of curses. Every team member looked at each other nervously and hurriedly discussed a few words in secret. In the end, they clenched their teeth and persevered. After all, they had already come this far, how could they not give it their all? Besides, almost everyone had the same thought as Che Rumen. They felt that if they encountered an extremely large spirit beast that they really couldn't deal with, the instructors would definitely not stand by and watch. Since no one backs out, then we'll set off in an hour. Wei Wei coldly glanced at Little Fatty, Mata, and Duan Muqing. Time is of the essence. This was a warning to the 3 of them. After all, their team was the only one on the field, and 2 of their teammates had disappeared. Arbor leaped up to a nearby empty mountain peak at lightning speed. With a furious roar, the water spirit in her hand gathered into a long whip and swept across half the mountain peak. In an instant, the scarlet boulder in front of her was smashed into pieces. Impossible. How could she have forgotten something? This was impossible. She clearly remembered everything. She clearly. Arbor held the water spirit whip and stared blankly at the mountain wall in front of him. It was as if a yellowed ancient scroll painting had appeared on the mountain wall, and the figure on the scroll was constantly flashing. If you want to kill Brother Qing, you'll have to kill me first. You call him Brother Qing. You and I have been together for so long, do you know my name? Arbor knew all too well about the man in front of him, who was wearing a wedding robe and holding a sword. His handsome face was cold and his eyes emitted a dark green light. Wasn't it Qin Xin? The blood in her body almost froze in an instant. Impossible. 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 How could she possibly marry Qin Xin? There was no such thing in his memory. Impossible. I remembered wrongly, I remembered wrongly, I remembered wrongly. He must have remembered wrongly. She squatted down and hugged herself into a ball, trembling. She saw the ancient scroll painting on the mountain wall. Qin Xin, who was wearing a red wedding dress, was thrusting the sword in her hand into a man's body. Arbor held her head and didn't dare to look anymore. She didn't dare to look into those ruthless eyes. She just squatted there and hugged herself into a ball. Chapter 1630. In her daze, she seemed to hear someone talking beside her. My name is Duanmu Qing. I don't remember how old I am anymore. What about you? My name is Arbor. I'm 20 years old. How long have you been locked up here? I don't remember. I was only 19 when I came in. Now, I don't know how many years have passed. It should have been 4 to 5 years. Duanmu Qing let out a long sigh and said, Actually, I've always lived in darkness. After a long time, I don't have to worry about never seeing the light again. Jojo, do you still remember what the starry sky looks like? If I can get out. I must spend 3 days and 3 nights to take a good look at the distant starry sky. Jojo, can you promise me one thing? Don't die before me. It's really too hard to stay in the dark alone. Arbor squatted on the ground. Unknowingly, her face was covered in tears. She felt that she might have remembered. Duanmu Qing. Duanmu Qing. He was one of the 2 pharmacists who were locked up in the dungeon with her and were studied by Fan Qiuhua all day long. It's him, it's him. What was going on? Impossible. She had never seen the 2 pharmacists who were equally miserable in her memory. Impossible, impossible. She didn't know the pharmacist called Duanmu Qing at all. She didn't know that when she was carried out of the dungeon by Qin Xin, she hadn't heard any movements from the 2 pharmacists for a long, long time. The pharmacists should have died long ago. Why did they appear by her side afterward? So scary, so chaotic. Why was she standing in the same wedding room as Qin Xin? Impossible, impossible, impossible. She couldn't have agreed to marry Qin Xin. Her mind was in a mess. It was blurry and even filled with horror and fear. Master! Little Treyant jumped out of Paradise Planet in a panic. Little Soil and Little Water also jumped out with it. The 3 little ones rubbed against her legs and looked at her anxiously. Master, Master, what's wrong? Jojo, Jojo. Qi Xianxian, who had chased after her, ran over from afar. When he saw everything clearly, he couldn't help but be shocked. Damn, this side of the mountain was almost flattened. Could it be? Qi Xianxian looked at Arbor in shock. She didn't have time to think about how this guy could be so strong. She quickly ran over and threw herself at Arbor. She reached out and hugged him tightly. Jojo. What happened? Tell me. I'll follow you. After being yelled at by this loud voice, the blurry scene in front of his eyes really receded like the tide, and there were no more flickering lights or passing shadows. Without Duanmuqing, without the terrifying Qin Axan, without the blood-red color of the corpses on the ground. Qi Xianxian looked at her anxiously. Arbor's eyes turned slightly red, and he could not hide the fear in his heart. He suddenly reached out and hugged Qi Xianxian, and he cried out emotionally, "Xianxian, I miss Mo Lian, I miss my mother, I miss Master. I want to go home." This terrible feeling was too uncomfortable to bear. It made one's heart palpitate and panic. She originally thought that she had solved all the mysteries of her previous life. She remembered everything, and she even personally solved her inner demon. She killed Qin Axan, and everything was over. It was like a person who had been trapped in a maze for 3 days and 3 nights. He finally saw the light and thought that he was about to walk out of the maze. Chapter 1631. However, behind the light was an abyss, an even more vast labyrinth. This made her powerful heart start to crack. She also couldn't endure this endless torment. "Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. Don't worry. I will definitely help you. I will definitely stand on your side," Qi Xianxian said as if she was making a vow. "Little Fatty will too. Don't worry, little Fatty, and I will help you." Arbor turned to look at Qi Xianxian. She looked at her pitifully, sniffled and said, "Xianxian, my shoulder hurts from your arm pressing on it." Qi Xianxian retracted her chubby hand awkwardly and laughed foolishly at her. She pulled her up and said, "Jojo, don't worry. I'm here for you. Speaking of which, just now, you ran away because you saw Duanmuqing. Did you know him before?" Arbor paused and shook her head. "I don't know him. Duanmuqing seems to be the most reliable person in our team." When Qi Xianxian said this, she realized that Arbor was looking at her. She quickly laughed and said, "Haha, of course, except for you." Arbor snorted and looked at her. "When you came out, did that troublesome teacher say anything?" Qi Xuanxuan's expression changed. She slapped her thigh and said, "Yes, we have to go back quickly. That troublesome teacher might find trouble with us again." Gurgle. Qi Xianxian almost stepped on Little Water Droplet. She quickly retracted her foot and looked at Little Water Droplet, Little Soil, and Little Trayant standing in a row beside Arbor's foot. This? What are these?" Arbor lowered her arms slightly. Little Water Droplet, Little Soil, and Little Trayant jumped onto her arm at the same time and climbed up. Arbor held the 3 little fellows and said to Qi Xianxian, who was in a daze, "Get to know each other. Little Water, Little Soil, and Little Trayant. This is the secret of how I comprehended the water and earth spirits. This is holy water, and this is holy land." Qi Xianxian couldn't control her shocked expression for a moment, and her jaw seemed to have dropped. "Ugh!" Qi Xianxian hurriedly held her small chin and swallowed her saliva. She stared at Little Water and Little Earth with sparkling eyes and said, "Wow, so this is the holy earth and holy water of our 5 spirit origins. Let me see, let me see." Ouch! Qi Xuanxuan's outstretched hand was gently whipped by the holy water. She quickly retracted her hand. "Humph, don't touch my lady holy water." The little guy turned into a little water baby and roared at Qi Xianxian with its arms akimbo. Then, it crawled all the way to Arbor's arm. "Don't mess around." Arbor touched the water helplessly. Master, don't be sad." "I'm not sad." She was just a little confused about her past life. She couldn't accept the sudden influx of dusty memories. That was why she couldn't accept it all at once. "Master, you have Jinjin here." Me too, me too. And little soil, little soil. The lump of soil was unwilling to be left behind and continued to climb up. As expected of holy water and holy earth. They were both so noisy. Qi Xianxian sighed. She hurriedly turned to Arbor and said, "What other abilities do you have to hide from me? Tell me everything in one go so that my heart won't be shocked and frightened all day long. It's too scary." Arbor's mood became better after being cheered up by this fellow. Chapter 1632. Arbor seriously considered Qi Xuanxuan's words. She tilted her head in thought and said, "Actually, the pills I sold last time were all made by me. My alchemist teacher has already passed away." Qi Xuanxuan's small mouth gaped into an O shape. By the time the two returned to the field hand in hand, almost everyone had finished their preparations and gathered in front of the mountain peak. The little fatty involuntarily sighed in relief when he saw the two little girls return. He hastily ran up and sized up Arbor. Seeing that she didn't have any injuries other than her slightly reddened eyes, he exclaimed softly, "You scared me to death. Where did you two run off to?" "They're going to set off in 5 minutes. That old stoic said that if you two don't return in 5 minutes, it'll be considered our team's forfeit. He said we automatically forfeited the entrance test, damn it." When the little stoic and Qi Xianxian heard the little fatty say the 3 words, "Old Stoic," they simultaneously killed him with their gazes. The little fatty instantly realized that he seemed to have used the wrong words. He hastily laughed awkwardly and coughed to cover it up. "Ahem ahem ahem, luckily you two came back. Our team is all here, so there's no harm in everyone getting to know each other." While the little fatty and Qi Xianxian were talking to Arbor, Duan Muqing only felt his gaze uncontrollably land on that aloof little stoic's face. It was as if that little stoic face was like a magnet, deeply attracting his gaze. Duan Muqing reflexively reached out to press his chest and felt his heartbeat inexplicably accelerate. He moved his lips and suddenly wanted to go up and say a few words to the little stoic, but he abruptly realized that the little stoic's gaze had never landed on him from beginning to end. "Hello everyone, I'm Ma Ta." Ma Ta jumped out first and waved at everyone. The little fatty and Qi Xianxian extended their fists at him at the same time. Ma Ta hastily raised both his hands and said with a mischievous grin, "Don't hit, don't hit. If I didn't inform senior brother Duanmu to come help at the last minute, you guys would have been kicked out of the academy because you couldn't gather enough people." Qi Xianxian was startled. So this guy invited helpers. She looked Mata up and down and snorted. "At least you have some conscience." He he he. Mata clasped his hands together and bowed to Qi Xianxian. "Take it as my apology to you. My name is..." Qi Xuanxuan's words were abruptly interrupted by Instructor Wei Wei. "Is everything ready?" Wei Wei walked out of a stone house. "Let me remind you again. Prepare enough water bags. Otherwise, you will regret entering the depths of the lava mountain range." Everyone looked at each other in dismay. Quite a number of people in the group hurriedly turned around and ran towards the academy's pond, intending to carry more water on their backs in case of an emergency. Qi Xianxian couldn't help but feel anxious. She turned to look at Arbor and asked, "What should we do? We didn't prepare any water bags." "Don't worry," Arbor and Fatty said in unison. Arbor was very clear that the things in her paradise star didn't need to be stored with profound sense at all. There was plenty of food and water on Paradise Star, as much as she wanted. As for mystic beasts, that was even more laughable. All of her beasts roamed around Paradise Star, unlike other people who needed to use profound sense to open their mystic beast spaces to release their mystic beasts. Chapter 1633. Therefore, these so-called restrictions were completely useless to Arbor. She had a divine cheating tool, Paradise Planet. Arbor turned to look at the little fatty who spoke. The little fatty took off his outer robe, revealing a circle of water sacks of various sizes hanging around his waist. He smiled at the two girls in a simple and honest manner. "Don't worry, I packed a lot of water for you guys. It'll definitely be enough to eat when we enter the lava mountain range." Arbor's gaze relaxed, and Qi Xianxian was so happy that she jumped up and punched the little fatty's shoulder. "Fatty, is it heavy? Why don't you give us a few sacks to carry? This bit of water is nothing." The little fatty put on his outer robe again. "I'll give you the water after we enter the lava mountain range. I'll hold it for you guys first." Tisk, little fatty is really considerate. Whoever becomes your wife in the future will definitely be very happy. As they spoke, the person who ran to fill the water sacks again hastily ran back. Many people scrambled to borrow a few more water sacks from the academy. However, Wei Wei swept a cold glance over them and said indifferently, "Time's up." Anguished wails came from the students on the mountain peak. Some people looked at the two small water sacks hanging around their waists with faint worry in their eyes. They felt that this instructor Wei Wei definitely wouldn't deliberately frighten them. Entering the mountain range without enough water might really be a suicidal act. They felt a bit panicked. What was going on? "Before we set off, each team member, show me your cultivation and mystic energy. Don't hide your strength. Let me know where your true strength lies. Show me your mystic beasts. If I discover that you summoned your mystic beasts during the test, it will be considered cheating and your qualifications to take the test will be revoked." Wei Wei turned to look at the strongest team and pointed at Che Rumen. "We'll start with your team." Che Rumen had a smile on her face as she raised her beautiful chin high with a proud expression. She reached out and circled a bean-sized flame. Che Rumen, 18 years old, peak level, 15 mystic cultivator, comprehended the 6th level of spiritual fire. Ping Guang, 25 years old, initial level, 14 mystic cultivator, has yet to fully comprehend spiritual water. Zhu Bozong, 22 years old, leveled, 14 mystic cultivator, comprehended the 5th level of spiritual water. Li Qian, 28 years old, level 1 soul master, level 5 spiritual fire. As Che Rumen's team members revealed their strength one by one and summoned their Xian beasts at the same time, everyone present looked at them enviously. As expected, it was the strongest team. In the team, only that wretched man with a protruding mouth and monkey-like cheeks was a level 13 mystic cultivator. He had only grasped the edge of spiritual energy comprehension and had yet to fully comprehend it. Among the other 4 people, 3 of them had actually comprehended the 5th level of spirit power. As for the captain, Che Rumen, she was even more talented. She had actually comprehended the 6th level of spirit fire. Those who could comprehend more than 60% of their spiritual energy were all amazing people. This was not something that could be mentioned in the same breath. They couldn't afford to offend them. Che Rumen's team was truly worthy of the title of the strongest team. The teams revealed their cultivation base and strength one by one. Among them, there were 2 people who had comprehended the 6th level of spiritual energy, attracting the envious and jealous gazes of the crowd. Wei Wei was unmoved and only looked on coldly from the sidelines. After the last and second team revealed their cultivation base, everyone's gazes uniformly shifted to Arbor's team. Looking at Arbor's team, their gazes carried hints of watching a good show. Chapter 1634. So what if those 3 youths had extraordinary strength? What could they do when they had to bring along 2 burdens with low cultivation? TSK, once they entered the mountain, they would know that no matter how beautiful a woman was, she would still be a burden and would only bring disaster to the team. Ko Hongwen, 19 years old. Peak leveled 15 Mystic Cultivator, level 8 Earth Spirit, Divine Beast Dazzling Iron Armored Tortoise. As soon as the announcement was made, everyone exclaimed. Divine Beast, Divine Beast. Level 8 Earth Spirit. Oh my god. Level 8 Earth Spirit, I didn't hear wrongly, right? Under the clamor, Qi Xianxian, Arbor, and the other two spoke indifferently one after another. Qi Xianxian, 15 years old. Peak level, 13 Mystic Cultivator, level 8 Spirit Lightning, Divine Beast Golden Furred Lion. Qi Xuanxuan's body trembled as a powerful mystic energy erupted from her hands. Everyone was dumbfounded. Arbor, 15 years old. Initial leveled 15 Mystic Cultivator, level 9 Spirit Water, Divine Beast Ancient Bloodfire Phoenix. Mata, 19 years old. Initial level 1 Mystic Cultivator, level 8 Spirit Water, Divine Beast. Duanmu Qing, 19 years old. Peak level 3 Mystic Cultivator, level 9 Spirit Wood, Divine Beast. Arbor, Mata, and Duanmu Qing spoke almost at the same time, their voices intertwined. Everyone could only hear, level 9, level 8, level 9 and a Divine Beast, Divine Beast, Divine Beast. They had completely forgotten how to adjust their facial expressions. Why did such a terrifying species like geniuses exist in this world? What did these so-called geniuses eat to grow up? Didn't they think that summoning divine beasts one by one to scare them was a very immoral and terrifying thing? Also, the power of the 5 spirits that were commonly comprehended in this world were all below level 6. This team was all at level 8 or 9 of the 5 spirits. What did this mean? As Arbor, Mata, and Duanmu Qing released their cultivation and summoned their divine beasts one after another, a trace of spirit energy appeared in their hands. The entire place was practically silent. Screech. The cry of a phoenix was heard. Wei Wei's eyelids twitched. You don't have to summon your ancient bloodfire phoenix. I know. You know. No, you don't know. The ancient bloodblaze phoenix is just one of the saint beasts by my side. Xiao Mu pulled back her hand, but she didn't summon the phoenix. Instead, she faintly swept her gaze over the shocked crowd before turning to ask Wei Wei, "Can we set off now?" Wei Wei nodded. "I have a rough idea of where your strength lies. When the time comes, I will bring you to different areas to train. Do what you can." Everyone nodded with a stupefied expression. They had yet to recover from the shock. This was especially true for the people who had mocked Arbor and Qi Xianxian. Now, they felt their faces hurt. What people with no cultivation? What weak people? Their faces were slapped so hard that it hurt. What bullshit low strength, what bullshit no cultivation. 2 15-year-old girls were peak level 13 Mystic Cultivators and initial level 15 Mystic Cultivators respectively. Was there anything more terrifying than this? He was only 15 years old. What was even more frightening was that the average age of the Arbor team was no more than 20 years old, but they had the highest cultivation among all the idiots. There was even a 19-year-old level 3 Spirit Master. Why didn't such geniuses just die? Did they have to show off in front of normal people like them? See you tomorrow. Chapter 1635. It was such a huge blow to him that he even had the thought of killing himself. Che Rumen was like a wandering ghost as she slowly moved forward with the starting team. Until now, she still couldn't accept that her team was chased down from the strongest team by someone. What strongest team? It was merely a joke. Others who were stronger than them hadn't even said a word yet, but they were clowns jumping up and down, making a huge joke out of themselves. Now, Che Rumen only felt that her face was burning red. She really wanted to turn around and curse Arbor for being an idiot. Why did she blindly hide her strength for no reason? She was clearly a level 15 initial success mystic cultivator, yet she pretended to be someone without any cultivation. Didn't she feel ashamed? However, all the cursing stopped abruptly the moment their gazes landed on that stoic face. What to do if she couldn't curse? That damn stoic face was so hateful. She really hoped that she would die in the depths of that lava mountain range later. Che-Rumen thought maliciously in her heart. She pulled her gaze away from Arbor and looked up at the stocky Li Qian. Do you have the confidence to take first place? Li Qian furrowed his brows. That 15-year-old girl is called Arbor, right? Her team probably isn't easy to deal with. There are also 2 seniors helping them. We probably can't take first place, but second place shouldn't be a problem. I don't want to be second. Che-Rumen nearly screamed. I, Che-Rumen, would rather be the head of a chicken than the tail of a phoenix. I just want to be first. I want our team to be the first in the test. When Li Qian heard that, he looked down at Che-Rumen and chuckled as he reached out to hug that woman's slender waist. He said with a smile, "What's the rush? The competition hasn't started yet, right? It's not impossible for you to take first place. I think that team is also made up of little girls and young boys. Their average age isn't over 20, so they definitely don't have much combat experience. They're just born in an aristocratic family and have unusually high talent. If we secretly use some tricks, we might be able to take first place." Li Qian reached out his hand and secretly touched Che's delicate butt. He grinned and said, "But if I help you this time, you have to promise to let me change to another prop." Che-Rumen couldn't help but tremble when she heard this. Thinking of Li Qian, that pervert, trying several props on her body, she suddenly felt her body tighten. However, she couldn't defend this level 1 spiritual master for the time being. She still had to rely on him. Che-Rumen gave a tender laugh, raised her hand and touched Li Qian's chest. "You dead ghost, thinking about that all day long. As long as you help me get first place, I'll do whatever you want." Hee hee. "Isn't that because you're such a cute little thing?" Li Qian laughed. The 2 of them mingled at the back of the group, walking forward while holding each other's arms. However, after the 2 of them flirted with each other for a while, they felt waves of heat rolling in. The surrounding air began to rise in temperature, and it was unbearably hot. The 2 of them quickly separated. Che-Rumen used her sleeves to wipe the sweat on her forehead and neck. She asked, "Why are you so hot?" "It's much hotter than the peak." Li Qian was so hot that his body and mind were irritated. "That's for sure." A member of the other team hurriedly nodded and interrupted, "The peak above has been cooled down by the spiritual water shield, so naturally it's different from here." Chapter 1636. Che-Rumen was unbearably hot. Taking advantage of the fact that her mystic consciousness had not been sealed by the instructor, she hurriedly took out the water flask from her inner world and gulped down half of the water in one go. Hanging the remaining water flask at her waist, Che-Rumen asked impatiently, "How much longer until we reach the entrance?" "We should be there soon." The team's advance slowed down. Everyone was originally walking on the winding mountain path, but now they stopped in front of a fiery red stone field. The rocks here were all roasted red, and everything that entered their eyes was bright red. Arbor stopped along with the team. You 3 teams will hunt 10 level 13 mystic beasts near the entrance of the red stone forest. Wei Wei said coldly, pointing at 3 of the 23 teams. "Now, I will seal all of your mystic consciousness. When the time comes, you can only use your own cultivation and strength when fighting with the mystic beasts in the mountain range. Have you taken out the water and food from your inner world? I'll give you 1 more minute to prepare, hurry. Ruman's expression was ugly. She took out the other 2 flasks of water from her inner world and stuffed a lot of dry rations into her arms. She could not help but protest, "Instructor, the environment here is so bad, you won't let us use our inner worlds. Isn't this entrance test too harsh? Those who don't want to take the test can leave now." Wei Wei said coldly, "I've already told you the rules. It's meaningless to raise objections now." In the next second, when everyone was caught off guard, he made a move and sealed everyone's profound senses. This move made all the students spontaneously admire him. Ruman secretly moved her mystic consciousness. Sure enough, she could not use it. For a moment, Ruman's expression became extremely ugly. She really could not open her inner world. She could not help but regret not taking out the remaining 2 flasks of water from her inner world. Now she only had 2.5 flasks of water hanging on her body. Was it not a bit too little? It was too late now. Her inner world was already sealed. Looking at Instructor Wei Wei's appearance, Ruman could not help but feel uncertain. Could it be that what Wei Wei said was true? Even if they encountered a large spirit beast and were in a life and death situation, he would not help them. Wei Wei stretched out his hand and shook it. A heavenly Tao oath that was suffused with golden light spread out layer by layer in front of everyone like an unfolding scroll, revealing rows of crooked names on it. Now that you're here, if you still want to participate in the test, you can come forward and sign this life and death oath. If you don't want to sign, you can leave. Everyone's expression changed drastically. They weren't blind. They could clearly see what was written on the Heavenly Tao Oath book. The oath stated that everyone had volunteered to participate in the entrance test. In the process of the entrance exam, if one were to encounter any life or death situations, there would not be any teachers to save them. Everything depended on the cooperation of the team to win the battle. Every time a team managed to defeat 10 Xian beasts designated by their instructor, they would be able to summon their instructor and apply to leave the beast area of the lava mountain range. Those who failed to complete the task within the specified time would be deemed to have failed the test and would have to leave the mountain immediately. Everyone had willingly signed the Heavenly Tao Oath after reading it. Their life and death had nothing to do with the academy. It's just a life and death agreement. Are you going to sign it or not? If you don't sign it, you can get lost immediately. Chapter 1637. If they signed it, no one could guarantee that they would be able to survive in the lava mountain range. Immediately, a few teams retreated at the same time. To put it bluntly, the elite academy was just their second choice. Actually, most of them originally wanted to go to the 4 major academies of the Sun, Moon, and Stars Academy. It was only because the other party's fees were high that they settled for the next best thing. They wanted to try their luck at the elite academy first and accumulate experience or money before going to the 4 major academies next year. What a joke, it was just an entrance test, they did not want to throw their lives away. Once this life and death agreement came out, 7 to 8 teams immediately disbanded. They looked at Instructor Wei Wei with ugly expressions and said, "Now that we are not participating in the Elite Academy's entrance test, shouldn't Instructor unseal our mystic senses?" Wei Wei glanced coldly at those few teams. "Your mystic senses will automatically be unsealed after 7 days." What he meant was that they could not unseal it now. Those people's faces instantly turned green as they glared at Wei Wei unkindly. They were so angry that they gritted their teeth. If this Wei Wei had taken out this life and death agreement for them to sign from the start, who knew how many people would still be left after entering the mountain with him? But he had to wait until he led them into the lava mountain range before telling them about this. How was this an entrance test training? It was basically a life and death battle for them. Whoever was willing could go. Excluding those people who had left, the 15 teams that were left behind, other than Arbor's team of 5 who were calm, the others' expressions were more or less stiff and ugly. Che Rumen turned to look at Xiao Mu and the others, and her eyes involuntarily flickered. These young ladies were quite courageous. Even at this time, their expressions didn't change at all. But it was also because they were truly capable. Che Rumen glanced at Arbor's Qi Xianxian and the rest again before retracting her gaze. She walked forward and wrote her name on the scroll and stamped her own blood seal. Li Qian, Peng Guang, Zhu Bozong and the rest of Che Rumen's team also walked forward and stamped their names before silently retreating a few steps. When Xiao Mu and the others finished imitating the plan, they turned around and discovered that 2 other teams were still discussing whether to sign or not. Wei Wei's face was stiff as he suddenly took back the Heavenly Tao Oath and said coldly, "All right, those who have signed the Heavenly Tao Oath, continue to follow me." The members of the 2 hesitant teams immediately became anxious. "Instructor, we've decided to participate too. I won't wait for you if it's too late. Come early next year." Wei Wei threw these 2 sarcastic words at the members of the 2 teams, whose faces were ashen, and directly led the 13 teams into the depths of the lava mountain range. I believe that most of you who have stayed behind have a good mental endurance. Those who were eliminated with just a few words showed their cowardice at the slightest attempt. They aren't suitable for this large-scale trial at all. A large map appeared in his hand. After looking at it for a while, he said, "Everyone, follow me." The lava mountain range is divided into 3 major regions. Our main area for this trial can be called a first-class area. In other words, it's the standard hinterland of the lava mountain range. Of course, this area is considered the deepest hinterland of the lava mountain range, but actually, it's not. Chapter 1638. The true hinterland of the lava mountain range is actually only considered a Class 2 area. Wei Wei glanced aloofly at everyone and said, "I'll give each team 1 minute to pass the map around and remember the approximate location. Let me remind you that with your current abilities, don't enter Class 2 and Class 3 areas. Otherwise, you won't be able to bear the consequences." The team members couldn't help but look at each other in dismay, and they reached out to take the map with their hearts in a jumble. They wanted to memorize the topographic map in their minds by rote. However, not everyone was like Imo Lien, who had a photographic memory. Even if our dear Xiao Mu saw such an enormous map, she wouldn't be able to remember everything in a short time. Arbor frowned as she turned her head to avoid looking at the map dizzily. Yet she saw Mata, who was standing on the side with his arms crossed, smile vulgarly at them. "You guys are in luck today. Boss Duanmu has an extremely good memory. When he was training in the lava mountain range, he once passed through the Class 2 area. He's very familiar with this place. With him leading the way, we don't have to worry about stepping into the forbidden area by mistake." Arbor saw that Duanmu Qing only glanced at the map a few times before looking away. Suddenly, he turned his head to look at her. She immediately averted her gaze, but her movements were extremely stiff. The little stoic didn't understand what the hell she was trying to avoid, and she felt a bit embarrassed. Qi Xianxian turned to glance at her and suddenly stepped forward to say, "Instructor Wei Wei, please lead us into the area first." Wei Wei glanced at Qi Xianxian indifferently. "You guys are the last." Qi Xianxian. Che Rumen snorted on the side. Just as she was about to mock them, she heard Instructor Wei Wei say, "Your team's overall strength is the strongest, so it's only right that I bring you to the strongest area to hunt mystic beasts. I'm thanking your entire family." Qi Xianxian and the little fatty rolled their eyes at the same time. Che Rumen was about to mock them, but her words were stuck in her throat in that instant, and she held her tongue with a cold expression. "All right." Wei Wei put away the map and said aloofly, "Have you all looked at the map clearly? Don't blame me for not warning you again. If you accidentally step into a second-class area, you might not even have a corpse left." "Instructor, are there any powerful Xian beasts in the second and third categories?" "Profound beast." Wei Wei sneered, "The second category region has a 1,000-year-old divine beast overseeing it. As for the third category region..." Wei Wei purposely turned to look at Arbor and said to her, "Although your ancient Bloodfire Phoenix is a holy beast, it is only a young beast now. Don't show off in the third-class area, or you'll regret it." From the very beginning, Xiao Mu had sensed the prickly feeling coming from this instructor Wei Wei. When she heard what he said, she turned her head and looked at him seriously. "Are you okay with this? Is there something wrong with his brain? Don't you remember that you sealed everyone's profound senses just now?" "Instructor, after one's profound sense is sealed, they won't be able to summon their contracted beasts," Qi Xian added in a lukewarm tone. Instructor Wei Wei's cold expression stiffened slightly, then he turned his head and snorted. "Let's go." Arbor's group silently followed the group. Actually, after several rounds of selection, there were only 13 teams, including Arbor's team, that were willing to continue the test. Chapter 1639. And out of these 13 teams, who would be able to make it out of the lava mountain range in the end? No one could say for sure how many teams there would be. Don't think that the Type 1 area that Instructor Wei Wei mentioned was small. In fact, each area was at least tens of thousands of square kilometers. Therefore, Arbor and the other teams were brought to the Type 1 area. Almost every team was separated by a large distance, and it would be impossible for them to bump into each other within 4 to 6 hours. Every team was thrown into their own small area to complete their mission. After Wei Wei finally left Arbor and the other 4 behind, he glanced at them coldly and said, "Every year, the Elite Academy will only accept 5 students. I hope that after 7 days, you will still be a complete team. I forgot to tell you that if someone dies in your team, it means that your teamwork is not good enough. At that time, the remaining few of you will not have the qualifications to pass the entrance test. Of course, this is only for you, you and you. The 3 of you." Instructor Wei Wei pointed at Xiao Mu, the little fatty, and Qi Xian as he said coldly, "After all, there are already 2 students from top academies in your team." After saying this, Instructor Wei Wei left quickly. Even the last few words that he said to them were filled with mockery and sarcasm. Arbor frowned and stared at Instructor Wei Wei's back as he left. Qi Xian could not help but laugh. "This instructor is really funny. Since we stepped into the lava mountain range, he has been mocking and ridiculing us until now. Isn't he tired of it?" Mata hurriedly said, "Actually, Instructor Wei Wei is still very serious and responsible. He is just a little." Qi Xian glared at him fiercely, "Shut up. You and that idiot instructor are on the same side. Anyway, this trial will not affect you at all. If you want to quit, then do it as soon as possible." "Miss Qi, what are you saying? Since we have promised to help you pass the entrance test, we will naturally not give up on you halfway." Mata's ears twitched as he said this. He turned his head to look at a few red-skinned, sharp-fanged foxes that suddenly appeared from behind a pile of crimson-red rocks. He suddenly conjured a few streams of water spirit energy and threw them in their direction. "Go!" Duanmu Qing gave a low shout, and the 4 of them immediately ran in his direction. Then, they quickly jumped and dodged on the rocks, avoiding the red-skinned, sharp-fanged foxes. This group of red-skinned, fanged foxes surged out from all directions. As their numbers increased, the expressions of Duanmuqing and the others also started to turn serious. The little fox in the lead stared at Arbor and the others with its small red eyes. It suddenly jumped up and was about to pounce and bite Arbor's calf. Suddenly, a fluffy white tail smashed into the little fox's head. With a loud bang, the red-skinned, sharp-fanged fox that was trying to bite Arbor's calf was smashed into pieces by a large, furry tail. Duanmuqing and the others turned to look and could not help but be slightly stunned. Beside Arbor, a little fat squirrel had appeared out of nowhere. It stuck out its little belly and was moving quickly beside Arbor's leg. Wherever it passed, no matter how sharp-tongued the little foxes were, they were all turned into ghosts under the tail. Xian, let me introduce you. This is my second contracted beast other than the ancient bloodfire phoenix. It is called Chirp Chirp Chirp. Chapter 1640. Qi Xuanchuan's wooden face did not have much expression. Instead, it was the little fatty who cried out in surprise, "What the hell? Aren't you cheating, Jojo?" "Ah, but I like it. That whatever teacher, he thought that you would be at your wit's end after he sealed your phoenix. Who would have thought that, haha. You even have a squirrel by your side." When the fatty said this, he suddenly paused and frowned. "Why do I remember that before the ancient bloodfire phoenix, you seem to have summoned a big green bird? She also has a little white snake." Qi Xian said woodenly, her face still maintaining a calm expression. Arbor glanced at them. "Let's break out of the encirclement before these red-skinned foxes surround us." Everyone responded and ran wildly, jumping up and down all kinds of strange rocks. Not long after, they left the group of red-skinned foxes far behind. Originally, after their leader was killed by the little fat squirrel's tail, the foxes had somewhat given up. Now that they saw the humans running away so quickly, they immediately lost interest in chasing them. A portion of them pretended to chase for a few hundred miles before they retreated. They cried out a few times and ran away with their tails between their legs. Qi Xian heaved a sigh of relief. These red-skinned fanged foxes are quite fast. They suddenly rushed out from behind the rocks. If not for their fast speed, they would have been surrounded by this group of little beasts. The group was chased by the foxes for a few hundred miles. After the fanged foxes left, the little fatty panted and couldn't wait to find a rock to sit on. "Oh my God, I'm so tired." Arbor glanced at him, then turned to look at the fox corpses that were scattered far away on the road they came from. "I'll go clean up." The task given to them by the instructor was to hunt and kill 10 second-grade spirit beasts. With their current cultivation, this could be considered a challenging task. Although these foxes were all level 12 or 13 mystical beasts, Arbor planned to clean up the fox corpses to see if there were any crystal cores in their bodies. At the same time, the 17-story Tower of Punishment, which was black and covered in a layer of blazing red flames, stood in an unknown space. As this space slowly drifted through the lower star zone, the 17-level Tower of Punishment would occasionally light up. Every time it flashed, the drifting spatial door would open. Sometimes, one or two unlucky fellows would be sucked in. On the 13th floor of the tower, a certain peach blossom was lazily leaning against a large round bed covered with felt. Holding a wine glass in one hand and a fruit in the other, he sighed and said, "These illusory things are illusory after all." It was tasteless in the mouth. Stingy. Please, don't be so picky. At least you have something to eat. What about me? On the opposite side of the round bed, there was a row of iron chains hanging on the wall. A young man whose hands were bound by iron chains couldn't help but roll his eyes and say, "I've been hanging on this wall for 10 years, big brother. How long have you been in here? They even entertained you with good food and drinks. That's why I said that the heavenly Tao also differs from person to person. You're just a lackey. The moment the young man finished speaking, a bolt of lightning fell from the top of his head and struck him until he was charred on the outside and tender on the inside. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.